Okay, I don't know why you brought the fucking Chinese try-hard fucking student today. I can't wait till Trump gets rid of you motherfuckers. Let me lock the fucking... I'm locking in. I'm locking the fucking...
Is clothing optional? It's really hot here.
No, the clothing's not optional. You have to keep your clothes on. Have some goddamn thanks for your dad. You better tell him thank you. You better tell him thank you, Dad, for making sure I could speak English.
Everybody basically gets 7 minutes. So they'll get a 1 minute opening. There'll be 5 minutes of like basically completely open debate. And then there'll be 1 minute where we'll kind of do almost like a ramping down of everything / that's when we're going to do the poll. The poll will extend the person an additional 6 minutes if they pass through the poll. And if they don't, we're just going to move on to the next person. But it's basically going to be, people are going to be debating Destiny's semi-meme-ish article that he wrote.
It's not
basically... It's not a meme. Basically talking about how much better it is to rent than to be a homeowner. Most people know Destiny's opinions on homeownership and what's wrong with homeownership versus like all the investment vehicles, stuff, all that kind of stuff.
If I make an investment in a piece of property and I decide that I want to leave, I can't. I'm literally locked there. I'm a prisoner to my investment. I cannot leave my house. If I want to leave and I want to sell it, I do this in less than like 7 or 8 years of owning the property, then I've completely and totally thrown away every single cent I could have possibly gained on that property.
We'll go ahead and do then is we will start with the opening, and I'm going to butt in every once in a while just to let people know that polls are up, things like that. But for the most part, I'll stay quiet. Ivory Fool, go ahead and do your opening statement.
Sure. Thanks, Hobbit. So housing encourages desirable pro-social behavior that renting does not. When people buy equity and a long-term commitment within their family and community, especially with low-interest fixed-rate mortgages, they have more stable relationships, better outcomes for children, have more civic engagement, and are more likely to become small business owners. If we are discussing this issue in the context of politics, we ought to talk about aggregate effects and societal benefits as opposed to individual cost-benefit analysis. If it's questionable whether or not owning versus renting is better financially for people that plan to live in the same place for the long term, that means there's a major housing supply problem that we need to solve, not that we should encourage more demographics to rent.
Let's run them down one by one. What was the first point you brought up?
All right.
You said pro-social behavior?
Yeah, but...
Do you live in a house?
It's the 4 things.
Yeah, I know.
I do, yeah. Oh, no. I rent it, but yeah, I do live in a house.
You're in a house. How long does it take you to get to your neighbor's house?
Like a minute.
Guess how long it takes me to get to the apartment next door to me? Like 10 seconds. Yeah, 10 seconds. Okay. How is the house more pro-social? Explain.
Well, so it creates like more stable relationships between just a couple. So if you have people that are living in a house, like it's probably more likely that they're going to be in a more committed and long-term relationship, especially if we're looking at like divorce rates and stuff like that. And one thing that is interesting that I found was women are way more likely to be single homeowners. And so I think just in general, women really care about homeownership more than men. And if we are looking at a society where, there's a lot of incel behavior or that's becoming more of an issue or men are becoming more and more dispirited, I think enabling or encouraging people and enabling them to own their home can help bridge that gap and make men more desirable to women if we agree that that's an issue.
Wouldn't it be better to just get a issue? What would be more impressive to a woman is you're an incel guy who managed to buy your shoddy, disgusting $175,000 house, or you just said it and you rented on like the 34th floor, okay, a really nice apartment with a nice view. With no mortgage
I don't think it should be about being impressive or not.
Oh, what's it about then?
More about like giving people the opportunity to like have this like milestone of commitment, and encouraging people to go through that and making sure that everyone has access to that.
Milestone of commitment. The fact that you can fill out a mortgage application.
No, the fact that you like agree we're going to own this house together.
Oh,
and that we can do that.
I mean, you can sign a lease together, can't you?
Yeah, but that's not, it's way less of a commitment. That's the point.
Okay, so you think that knocking somebody up is a good way to further the commitment in a relationship because now you have a kid together? You think that's healthy?
If you agree ahead of time, then, I think a big part of it is that men don't commit to women as much anymore. Okay. I don't really want to get into that too much, but like, that's the, that's kind of, like, the idea is not that commitment itself is good. The idea is that if you have like you want people to have options to commit to each other.
Don't you think buying a home together kind of eliminates those future options? Isn't that like a really big lock-in? Like, wouldn't somebody be more likely to stay in a bad relationship if they bought a house together?
No, I'm saying like this is a thing that they have an option to do. And if home ownership is inaccessible to people, then they don't have that option. It's not about having this carrot dangling. That's not what.
Sure, but we're not talking about having the option to rent a home. We're talking about whether it's good to execute on that option of renting the home.
No, but so that's what I'm saying. That I started off by saying that we want to look at the societal benefits, not the individual cost benefit analysis. So like we should make it more desirable for people to want to own a home, because owning a home has all these benefits, including encouraging people to be more entrepreneurs, encouraging people to be civically engaged. And I think that's a pretty big one that we probably both agree is really important right now, that like people just aren't reading the news.
True. But
that like
I feel like you can do these things and be in an apartment. I don't think you need, like, for instance, I voted and I'm civically engaged, but I'm in an apartment.
Sure.
I know of friends, at least one, who owns a home and is not civically engaged, and he didn't vote. So now what?
I'm saying on aggregate, like if you look at the studies, that people that own homes and you control for all the socioeconomic status, everything like that, owning a home increases the number of people that are willing to be entrepreneurs. It increases civic engagement. The mechanistic hypothesis is that if you're committed to a community, you're more likely to want to improve that community. And so like if you own equity in a community, like that's literally what you're doing when you're buying a house and land.
Yeah, but couldn't you also just like couldn't you buy a condo?
Sure. I mean, the point is owning the home, not versus renting.
I thought the point was homes versus apartments. Wait, so you're saying renting a home wouldn't qualify in this world?
Yeah, because you don't benefit from the property value going up.
Oh, so this is all about just how does benefiting from the property value going up? That's the thing that causes all the pro-social cohesion and the entrepreneurship and everything?
I'm sure that's part of it. I don't claim that that's the entire part of it. I think that'd be foolish.
Really?
Yeah, just to say that the only reason why people are more civically engaged is because they want their house to be worth more.
Okay, sorry. This article was a half-meme article. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how serious the level of engagement is. Wait, let me lock the fucking.
It wasn't a meme, but the poll is going out. Okay, so in all the chats, the poll is going out. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're just wrong. Sorry.
On what?
On everything.
Based on what?
On my feelings.
Do you want me to show you like some sort of citations?
Yeah, give me one citation. Go ahead and show me your first citation. What do you got?
Okay. So using a large U.S. individual level survey data set over the 1996 to 2006 period, we showed that a 10% increase in home equity raises the probability of transition into entrepreneurship by 14%.
Oh yeah? How many of those people lost their business? When did that data set end?
In 2006?
Yeah. How many people lost all their businesses and everything the next year, huh?
So then we should make it less likely that people lose, like less volatile. Like we can create policy that
Do you know what reduces volatility? Renting versus owning. Because then the volatility is all shifted onto the landlord. And I can just pay a smooth monthly payment.
I mean, the whole point is that in that period where people didn't really think that this was a possibility of foreclosure, the people that own their home were more likely to be entrepreneurs. So
the people who felt like they had absolutely no risk to take whatsoever felt like they could invest in businesses. That's not surprising. That's because they had no risk, because the banks and the financial system for the housing market was crazy.
Next thing you're currently getting owned in the marketplace.
Give me the next citation.
Has been extended.
Next citation.
Okay.
This one better not end at 2006.
Right. So we found that access to entrepreneurial bank credit is easier for homeowning entrepreneurs at both the intensive and extensive margin. We saw that during the crisis, the gap actually widened between homeowners and renters with respect to their access to credit, despite the lower market value of the homeowner's collateral. So, I mean, even in the case where their housing, like the housing market is collapsing, banks are still giving preferential treatment to keep businesses afloat to homeowners rather than renters. And I'm assuming they controlled for, just the total number of like debt to asset ratio and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, you would make that assumption, wouldn't you? Because it helps your argument, doesn't it?
It'd be ridiculous to to like publish that without controlling for that.
Really? What year does this study cut? Where's the data set from?
I'm thinking it's looking at the global financial crisis.
Oh, so the whole world. They studied the entire world.
No, I was talking about the time period.
Yeah, but what housing market and credit market was it talking about?
Entrepreneurial activity in the Netherlands.
Wow. The Dutch?
I mean, look, like when you're talking about like scientific research, it's not like these things don't happen immediately, right? Like,
yeah, but you think Dutch people and Americans are comparable?
Probably.
Let me introduce you to a concept called
aspects.
Ethnic homogeneity. Have you ever heard of it before?
Sure.
And social cohesion? I'm just kidding. Okay.
So, I mean, the point is that
I'm responding to your point. Okay.
Okay.
How would owning a home give you access to more credit? Were these people taking out like credit based on their homes, or?
Yeah, yeah. You use the equity that you have on your house.
Isn't the study just saying then that people that have money or have assets have access to credit? Wouldn't that make sense?
Right, but the
like they could have any other asset or class theoretically, and they would still have access to the same credit, right? Like instead of owning a home, let's say they dumped all that money into a 401k or whatever, they'd still have access to credit. They just happen to be dumping their money into a house, right?
Yeah, and the mere fact that people own the home makes them more likely to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that makes sense. But that's just because of I feel like
with same credit to debt ratio.
With the same credit to debt. Oh, with the same net worth?
Yeah, because you control for socioeconomic status.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is how does like if I've got $50,000 of equity in a house versus $50,000 of equity in some kind of other asset class. I don't know why having the house gives me special access to credit that I wouldn't have otherwise.
I don't think they were saying it gives you special access to credit. I think they were saying that that type of asset, that type of collateral is more preferable to banks.
Okay. That might be true. But that's a shitty reason, I think, to own a home.
Well, so I'm not saying that's why I'm not arguing on the individual level.
No, I understand you're not arguing on the individual level. I can understand that it might make sense that banks might prefer loaning against housing collateral versus other types of collateral. I don't know how high your portfolio needs to be to have to take out a loan against like if you have like stocks or whatever. I will say one of the scary things about utilizing credit. Well, actually, wait, hold on. When you talk about access to credit, are people taking out loans against their home to like start businesses?
Yeah.
Is that a preferential idea, or is that a good? Do we want to encourage that type of thing?
I think so. Because I mean, it's all connected, especially if it's a local business.
Why do you guys keep? Oh my god! Hold on. Let me turn my AC down. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Let me lock in.
Oh my God, we're pausing the time. We're pausing the time. He's scrolling. He's getting absolutely destroyed right now. Chat, you guys are seeing this. He's literally leaving his desk. He's getting blown out by the ivory fool. Everybody can see it.
Okay, I don't know why you brought the fucking Chinese, try hard fucking student today. I can't wait till Trump gets rid of you motherfuckers. Okay, let me lock the fuck in. I'm locking in. I'm locking the fuck in. I'm locking in now. I'm locking in.
1 minute?
Yeah.
Go.
Restart it.
Go.
Okay. My understanding is businesses. My understanding, by the way, is the polite and humble way of me saying, I know this is a fact, but I don't want to present it that arrogantly, okay? My understanding is that businesses have a very high rate of failure, okay? If a friend came to me and he said, hey, I want to get credit for a business. I want to take out a loan from the bank, and I know just the way to do it. I go, oh, really? What are you going to do? So I want to take out a loan against my house. I would say, that's fucked, bro, because now if your business fails, not only are you exposed on the business side, you've opened yourself personally up to liability, because if your business fails, you're going to lose your business, and now you're going to lose your fucking house. Your life is over. Would you really recommend somebody to take out some type of loan against the value of their house when new businesses have a fail rate of like 90% over 5 years?
So, I mean, I think we both agree that renting, in terms of like the actual living conditions, aren't really all that different. So it's like if someone loses their house and they have to rent now because they took on this risk, like I think we both kind of agree that like, you know, that's fine.
No,
like, they don't
it's not fine. Wait, that's my argument. It's not fine. If I'm in an apartment and I can't pay my lease and I lose my apartment, what happens? I can't pay my lease. I get kicked out. If the landlord is a huge asshole, he probably doesn't give a fuck, but he could take me to small claims court, you know, for some part of the lease, maybe. But if I can't afford my house, we're in big trouble. I have to sell the house. I have to make up the difference in whatever the equity and the borrowed amount is. So let's say I've got a house, $1 million house. Let's say I have $50,000 in equity. Let's say that I borrow out $50,000, against the equity. Now I have no equity in the house. And then let's say that I go upside down on my, no, I don't have to go upside down even. Let's say let's say that wait,
like taking a long-term stock option or like a short-term stock option where you don't just like leverage everything and then lose more than you put in.
Well, what do you think the risk is? That's why it's risky to start a business. If you lose it, you lost.
You can lose what you put in, but you're not going to lose more than what you put in.
True.
Usually.
Well, true. But if you're starting a small business, okay, not all of us are, Big Bucks McGee over here, all right, in the ivory tower of academic elitism, okay? Some people, when they start a small business, they lose that small business. It's not like they have tons of other revenue streams to pull money from. Like if you... In my mind, there's no they go find a job. In my mind, a person who is, I don't mean to say this word meanly, but a person who is desperate enough to leverage their house in order to get a loan, an SBA loan to start a business, is probably not the kind of person who has a bunch of capital available to them, such that if the business fails, they're totally fine. And now they've got their mortgage payment and they've got to pay off this HELOC or whatever other type of loan they took out against the value of their house. I don't know if that's a great way to start a business, is borrowing against your...
By foreclosing the house.
That's a big deal because now you've got to foreclose.
It's a big deal, yeah, but it's not life ending. Like you can just go rent, like you said.
Yeah, but now you're renting with a foreclosure under your belt, so your credit is going to be fucked, and you run the risk of, depending on what
Okay. I don't know if foreclosure is the right word, right? Because if you're just releasing the house, if you're selling the house and you're paying off the loan, like you're not. I don't think that hits your credit. Like it just means.
I'm so sorry. Foreclosure is when you default on the loan and then the bank repossesses your house to make your shit straight.
Right.
You mean just selling the house?
It's like the business failing and you have to like, give up the venture, right?
Yeah.
I don't think.
But the problem is, so anytime, one of my biggest criticisms of using homes as wealth vehicles is you lack any diversification. You are highly over invested in a single asset class and truly in a single asset, right? So if you're forced to sell your home at a non-preferential time because you're trying to make good on a loan, you might be completely fucked. So you could be upside down on the loan. Maybe your home has lost a little bit of value. So not only are you selling the house now at a loss, which would suck depending on how early you are in the ownership cycle of it, you're selling it at a loss. You have to make up the difference to the bank. You might do that on a payment plan or something. And you're and then you're also like trying to find a place to rent and live on top of that. It's just you're exposed to so much more risk on owning the home. Generally, the risk isn't a big deal, but if you're starting to leverage the risk, what? Go ahead.
You're conflating entrepreneurship with like homeownership as one investment vehicle, right? Because the thing that is putting you under is not the fact that your house price is going down. What's going under is the fact that your business failed. So like that's completely separate from how good of an investment the house is. And I also
correct. Wait. I agree with you. One thing at a time. I agree with you that those two things could be separate, but you wanted to connect them in the form of arguing that owning a home gives you access to more credit. So I'm attacking that argument.
So I don't know exactly what the mechanism is behind why do homeowners
have access to more credit?
Well, so that's one possible explanation, but the I don't think that there's been enough studies on this direct connection between entrepreneurship and homeownership that we can definitively say what exactly the causes and mechanisms are. But I think
we can ditch it then if you want. We can eject that argument.
Well, I mean, I still think there's enough studies that that people have noticed this effect and have articulated it. And
I'm sure you can have access. No, I mean, I agree with you, right? We could also do an access, we can do studies showing that, that in 99% of circumstances, men could kill their wives if they wanted to. But that doesn't mean I would say that this is something that should happen, right? Like, I'm sure there are a lot of studies showing that homeowners have access to more credit than non-homeowners, even all else equal, because a house is, like you said, it's probably a preferential collateral vehicle because the person has to use it, right? Like if you're going to take out a loan against your home, I know where your home is. I can always go and repossess it. It's a secure loan, right? I agree with that. I just don't know if that is anything that moves me much in the direction of home ownership, because the types of loans that you would be securing with the equity in your home are things that I would almost always almost universally recommend against doing. And I feel like most people would. If somebody's like, "Oh, I'm starting a new business. I took out a loan against my house to do it." It's like, "Whew, that's not a great one," I think.
I'm not following the logic.
Real quick. Go ahead, and this will be kind of our closing. Ivory, very good job, but go ahead and bury Destiny one last time.
Yeah.
So I think that, as we're thinking about housing and it's like becoming a broader and broader political issue or a more hot topic, and people are focusing on how we can, reduce the the barriers to increasing supply, I think we really ought to frame the conversation around the societal benefits of homeownership. And, as if housing supply is, if it's like the fact that it's a question that owning a home versus renting long-term, same area, it's like, it's kind of it's up to personal preference between renting and homeownership. Like that's a major issue because homeownership should always be way better for people living in the same area long-term. And so I think that's really what we ought to be focusing on, especially that when there's, blossoming evidence that there's all these pro-social effects like civic engagement, entrepreneurship, and handling growing tensions between men and women.
Do I give a final rebuttal or?
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to be putting out a poll of who won this debate as well between the Ivory Fool and Destiny. That is going to be spammed in the chats.
Okay. Wait, for future people, I feel like they should probably have the final say since I get to stay here the whole time, right?
That's fine.
Okay, listen. I didn't know you were coming with the hardcore to data points, okay? On a serious level, I would obviously we went back and forth on the entrepreneur point. I would argue against that. On to the pro-social point, I would argue that any type of pro-social behavior that is encouraged by, or civic engagement that is encouraged by home ownership, I would say is like soundly defeated by even like a simple glimpse of home ownership around the world. My understanding is Americans have some of the lowest civic engagement in the world, and I think we have some of the highest home ownership rates in the world. You don't see Americans being far more civically engaged than people in Germany or France or Poland or the United Kingdom, despite the fact that the majority of these people live in apartments versus Americans who all live in homes. I don't think that when it comes to like incels and stuff, I don't think that the only way to defeat this is with home ownership. Again, in every comparable European country, we can compare ourselves to them, but we want things like their public transport, or we want things like their healthcare systems. They don't seem to have the housing component as like a necessary part of their existence. So I just don't feel a very strong pull towards the idea that that having a home like alleviates these issues. It might in America, but I would argue if it does, it's just because that's like a cultural norm, and it's a cultural norm we need to change.
So go ahead and get the last word, Ivory.
Yeah, I think it's really important to talk about. I didn't expect to have a last word, so I wasn't really thinking about one. But I just wanted to say I appreciate having the conversation and starting it. And if you ever want to talk in the future, I'm down.
Okay.
Thank you, Ivory Fool. I will drag you out of here. Neith, you're going to be coming up next. Thanks again, Ivory.
That guy. Don't ever let that guy back on any of these ever again.
Okay. So we are going to be... Are you ready for the next one?
I'm ready.
Sweat.
Get me in,
dude.
okay? Get me the fuck in. Get me in. I'm not. I'm ready. I'm locked the fuck in. I'm locked in. I'm locked in now. Go. It's not going to be nice, though. It's not going to be easy. Oh, wow. What's up, Solid Snake? Nice eye patch.
Oh, thanks. I don't have an eye patch in real life, but it's to drawing my family.
Oh, we got the Carney book. We got the Ezra Klein book. What is up, my neoliberal?
I am fully neoliberal pilled.
And you're going to come and argue houses? How can you even do this? Holy shit. It's like you're coming to argue Christianity with an Ayn Rand book in the background. Let's go. What do you got?
Opening statement.
Yeah, go ahead. Open.
Jesus, come on.
I think my opening statement is just or obviously like there's an investment aspect to housing, but I don't think that's like the most important one to discuss. I think the idea of owning a house is a democratic idea, and maybe the idea of renting is an idea of like a kind of like a dictatorship, like a despot kind of thing. You're at the whims of your landlord. You can either have a good landlord or a bad landlord, and that's how you will get your enjoyment out of renting it. And then with the democratic aspect of owning a house, you're free to fail or succeed. And so you can build wealth, or not build wealth, sorry, I don't want to make that argument. But you can build up a future that you want, and you are in control of that future by owning a house rather than renting. That's my introduction argument.
My counter retort is nothing is more fascist than owning your own home. In an apartment scenario, what happens? You wake up in the morning, you find out that rents are down in comparable apartment complexes. There's pressure on your landlord to decrease rents. Or maybe in 2 months when your lease is up, maybe you dip, maybe you bounce, maybe you get the fuck out of there. What could be more freeing than the ability to change your abode every 12 to 16 months, depending on your lease arrangement? Versus, let's say that you are one of the unfortunate millennial or Zoomers that had to buy a home in this high interest rate environment, and now you're locked in on a 30-year, 7%, 7-inch dildo pumping in and out of you for 30 years. What is more fascist than the bank that owns that loan never renegotiating with you? You could refinance, I guess, if the interest rates go down. But I feel like, ironically, when it comes to renting, I feel like you have a little bit more freedom. There's a little bit more, if you want to take this kind of democracy aspect, I think there's more competition. Landlords are, to some extent, motivated to keep prices somewhat low or to be somewhat competitive on amenities or services. Whereas, for the home, as soon as you lock in, you're locked in for 30 years. The bank doesn't give a fuck. You just have to make your payments and then you're done.
I 100% agree on the mobility aspect, but I think like once you have a family, I think that's when you kind of want to settle down and maybe stay in one city rather than moving around. I guess it depends on your job at the end of the day.
You can move around in the city. You can find a different apartment down the street.
Well, no, that's true too, but I guess like it's a big hassle to move. I actually just moved into my new apartment here, and I wouldn't really want to have to move every single year and like get all the couches and all the furniture moved around all the time. It just seems like a big hassle.
It would be, and you wouldn't want to have to move, but having the option to move, that's what freedom is about.
I totally agree. Like the option to move is good too, but like I don't know. Like I've been seeing, or like the stereotype of like a dad, he's like mowing his lawn like Saturday morning or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I think like doing like those DIY repairs on your house, like it just speaks to a certain character of people, and like they always want to be in control of like their own house and their own or destiny, has to say, or whatever, right? But
but imagine if instead of mowing this horrible fucking plant that you grow in the front of your house to show all the other neighbors how trim you can keep your fucking plant, imagine inside you take up woodworking or guitar playing or painting Warhammer 40K figurines, right? At the end of a year, what does your neighbor have to show for this? The homeowner, the mortgageoid, right? He's like, look at how thin my grass is. Meanwhile, you have a full collection of Warhammer 40K painted figurines on homemade custom wood tables, okay, that you can serenade with your guitar skills that you've picked up in your free time, because you don't have to waste all your time cleaning your gut. Do you know the percentage of homeowners that get injuries from cleaning their gutters every year?
It's got to be
35%. You ever see that episode of House with the one guy who falls off the roof and Cuddy gets real mad and I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I totally agree with that. I'm just saying it speaks to a certain like group of people who want to own their own house. And I don't think like we should be discouraging them from like exploring that opportunity. And I think like you always have a nuanced opinion. Like it's good to like own or rent, just depending on like your situation.
The thing that I don't like being serious, the thing that I don't like is that it feels like culturally there's so much baked into home ownership that makes it seem like an inevitability that you have to own a home to get these things. Like even the thing that you said, like having an investment in a community, well, you have to own a home to do that. That has to be an American idea, because we're the only country that has that idea, right? I don't think I've ever been to a European country where the people are like, oh yeah, like I'm here in an apartment, so I don't give a fuck about our politics. Like that's just such a mind-blowing thing to me. And I'm actually curious, I don't have these numbers on hand, but I'm curious there's a counter argument. Who is more civically engaged? People that live like in rural areas, like in homes, or people that live in city areas in apartments? But I bet the actual answer to that is probably people who live in city areas and have houses is probably the answer. But
I don't really subscribe to the belief that like you have to own a home to be civically engaged. Mm-hmm. Like I did a lot of door knocking. I'm Canadian actually, so I don't think it's
I figured that out. Don't worry.
I might be a little different with the markets. I guess like your civic engagement is all just based on like how much invested you feel in the community and whether or not like you rent or like own a house. Like it's all just about how much you care or how much time you have to do all these things or whatever, right? And I think it's hard to change the idea of like owning a house, because I actually was trying to do research before this into the idea of like home ownership, and I read this dissertation saying that like the American dream was never originally to own a house, and it was basically like all these European immigrants who migrated from Europe post Reconstruction who wanted to own a house as they saw it as a way to become middle class rather than low wage laborers or whatever, right? And it didn't end up like helping them become middle class, but it satisfied their like desire to have control over like that jump into becoming middle class in a sense. Like middle class people it was like 50-50 renting and owning something.
And I can understand that back in when we say Reconstruction, do we mean like post Civil War? Is that what we're talking about?
Like 1870s
to
like 1920, I think was the observation.
I wonder back then how much access.
We're going to go ahead and send the poll out, okay, for our Mr. Mooten in Better Light from Canada here. It's going out.
Mr. Mooten, yeah.
What do you mean, damn?
No, I just didn't think I looked that much like Mr. Mooden. But
Okay, well, you said damn like negatively there. You should be like Mr. Mooden. Damn.
I get
You were
told
like-
it with,
you were
people all
like,
the time.
damn.
So it's funny. It's funny that people always say that, but it's all good.
Now you're making it sound like a concession. No, it's all good. It's okay.
No, I mean, he should
You
just
should be
come on more
excited,
often, then I'll be-
okay? You should
if
be
he was on the show
excited.
more often, then I'd be more excited.
True. Okay.
Yeah, just joking. All right. But yeah, no, I don't think like you have like a huge like, or like I don't think like there's good faith arguments to say like owning is like 100% better than renting in a sense. It's just kind of like what your preferences are, like what you have like a need for in life. And I just think like there's a huge majority of people who think that owning is like the most important thing to them. So we
Yeah,
have
but I
to
feel
help
like,
accommodate
can I ask how old you are?
that. 22.
Here's something that's very annoying to me. I don't know if this was like this for you. And maybe it was more for me also because I went to a prep school, but I don't think so. I think this is for everybody in my generation. So I'm 36. And one thing that I hear, especially conservatards, cry about is this idea that when we went to high school, they told us, go to college. Everyone has to go to college. One size fits all. We all go to college. And now, all these centrists and all these whatever losers are like fighting on this idea. Like, no, it doesn't. You don't have to go to college. There's all these other things you can do. You don't have, you shouldn't do a one size fits all. But when it comes to home ownership in the new world in North America, it feels like that is the thing. Like if you don't own a home, you're like people look down on you, like culturally. I don't know if Europeans understand that feeling as much. I'm sure that in Europe, if you in European countries, if you have a home, that's probably more prestigious, sure. But I don't think anybody like living in Paris or London or Stockholm or Copenhagen, if you're like, oh yeah, like I have a condo, or oh yeah, like I'm an apartment, I don't think people are like, ooh, that guy's kind of a loser. In the United States, people kind of have a tinge of that feeling. If you're like, oh, like I'm 36, like I have an apartment, it's like, ooh, you rent an apartment? What are you, a fucking loser? What's wrong with you? Like you basically live with your parents. And I think that culture needs to change. There can be times when owning a home is nice and it's okay, but the fact that like home ownership needs to be some sort of inevitability if you want to have a family or something, I think that's super toxic and cancerous, and I don't think that it needs to be the case. I think that's a uniquely American, cringe, weird thing.
Oh yeah, like I 100% agree. Like I don't think the debate should be whether or not like you rent or your own. I think the debate should be, or like how you talk to people about this. It should be like it's okay to have an apartment. You can own your apartment. Like that's totally fine. You can have a condo apartment, but like
True.
It shouldn't be like a single family house in a suburb. It should be like multi-family, dense like housing in that sort of sense, right? And that's obviously a big issue in Canada, is that like we have no housing at all. And so that's like maybe one of the ways of like how you get around that is like you just start densing people like more together, whether that's apartments or with
True. Wait,
design houses from
I just got the sickest idea ever. What is this debate over? Is it over houses versus apartments, or is it over owning versus renting?
It's renting versus owning.
Okay, I should just buy a condo. That's like the best of all the worlds.
You
Holy
just
shit.
become a landlord.
Well,
Like
that's too. I don't care about that. That's too much work. Are you? Oh, you're a strong liberal. You're happy with how the elections turned out?
Yeah, I campaigned for my local Liberal candidate. Unfortunately, didn't win. I live in like Saskatchewan, so
Saskatchewan, is that a province or is that a weird city in like Alberta?
it's a province in like the middle of Canada, right beside Alberta.
Okay, damn, you're way the.
It's kind of like Nebraska if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean Alberta's kind of like Nebraska. Or I guess Alberta's more like Texas, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What else? What's next? What else you
Next,
got
I
for
don't
me?
know. What else I got for you? I don't know. I think you should actually move to Canada and not the U.S.
Why? Why the fuck would I move to Canada?
Canada's just like a better country, or like I think the future is bright for
Okay,
Canada. Like, I know
okay.
that's-
We're gonna get back onto the debate
Okay,
topic.
okay.
Okay, Canada sucks. Okay, let's be
Canada
honest with
sucks.
ourselves here.
Wow. He just means Canada sucks because of the way that you guys treat your natives is unacceptable.
That's true. That's true.
I think you guys treat them like way worse than we do, but
Well, but at least
you
we're
guys don't even like acknowledge they exist, do they?
true. Yeah, you guys at least do your land acknowledgements. I'm sure that makes them feel way better.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess we should probably keep it to like housing, renting, and owning or whatever, right? But like, do you like disagree with like the fact that we need to like have more apartments or like have more dense housing in any of that sense?
Dense housing, I'm okay with, but housing and density in the United States seems to always go contradictory to each other. Like when people want houses in the United States, it's almost always single family homes.
Well, right. It's because like there's like an aspect of like privacy to that too. Like obviously, like depending on your apartment, you can either hear your neighbors walking around or like you can't. Like I can't hear people in my apartment, so that's good. But like, it's just always so like there's obviously should be competition for like apartments that like have the best possible thing, but not everybody can have that and not everybody can afford that, right? And I think they would rather have a shitty house than a shitty apartment. I think lots of people would rather have that.
Rather have a shitty house than a shitty apartment. That's probably true-ish. I just feel like there's so many downstream negative effects from having like people in shitty houses where
that's true too.
yeah. The
But I don't like that's where like obviously government comes in to help, like maybe give like funding or like or maybe poor people or like poor people. I should say like less fortunate people who like buy a shitty home. Like maybe they should have like some sort of like condo association. So like they're not the ones who has to take care of like the lawn or like any like repairs or whatever. Right? Like they still own their house, but like somebody else comes and manages like all these like extra. I guess it's like renting with extra steps in that sense, right? But I think the ownership is just like what's so core to what people want.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I also don't like the ownership aspect when you say what people want to, because it ends up creating this weird like generational expectation. It's probably true in Canada as well, because I think Canada and the US are siblings when it comes to culture. Like in America, people think that they own the right to have their entire lineage live in their house for the rest of existence. Like unironically, like if I grew up in this house, my kids should have this house, their kids, their kids, their kids, their kids. And I think it ends up being a big stifling thing to any kind of future development. I'm actually curious in Canada. I bet you do have it in Canada. I'm curious in Europe. Is gentrification a concept in Europe? Is it in Canada?
Oh yeah, like there's like neighborhoods and like in my city that are being like gentrified. Like they used to be pretty rundown neighborhoods, and they're trying to be more investment into those areas, and they're actually like very cool aspects of the city. Like it's way better, or like even downtown is being like gentrified to like just accommodate more people instead of people being out in like the.
Because in the United States, like, I don't know if it must be the same in Canada. I don't know in Europe. In the United States, gentrification is literally like the worst word ever. Like it's like saying the N-word, but with housing projects. Like gentrification is the worst thing ever. And it's strange to me because like, what does it mean when you gentrify an area? It usually means that you are like improving the area like a billion different ways, but people don't like it because sometimes people that live there might be displaced. And it's like, well, are all of our decisions around housing and city planning and all that, are they built around the idea that whoever happens to be in an area, their entire lineage is going to be there for the rest of eternity? Like that just seems like a very restrictive and bad way to do like a city planning.
I actually don't know like too many people who like have that like intergenerational household thing where like it's passed on to the next. It always seems like the kids move out, they go to a different city, or especially in Saskatchewan, like lots of the kids will move out to other provinces for job opportunities and that stuff, right? And their parents stay in that house until like they sell it for like retirement or whatever. So I don't really know that like the house passes down from generation to generation. It's usually like once the house is sold, that money will be passed down to the kids like through like their estate or whatever, right?
Destiny, if you want to go ahead and give a little closing, and then we'll give him the last word. Unfortunately, there was too much agreement that what happened, and
the guy's got a Klein and Carney book behind him. I mean, what are we gonna disagree on? You know,
I mean,
you were desperate for people, so I just thought I'd like volunteer and give help. So.
No, thank you so much, Neith. Any last words that you have?
Or was Destiny supposed to go first, or was I supposed to?
I'll go first. You know, I realized in the middle of this conversation, I should buy a condo.
You should.
I don't know why I haven't. That would be a really good idea. But yeah. And then, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, if that's all you have to say, then.
What was the central point of our disagreement? What did you bring up?
I don't think we really disagreed on anything, but I think it was just like the investment in the community of like staying here, owning a house, and like it's about staying in the city and being loyal to the city rather than like having the option to move out. I think that's kind of where our disagreement was.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and link the poll to see who won this one.
No, f this chat. These guys are all just mortgageoids. They're all just homeowners.
All right. Well, Destiny, you're just getting destroyed today. Okay. This segment's never going to happen again because Destiny is just going to actually retire afterwards. So, Neith, you are the winner of this debate.
Thanks.
Canada did not win, though.
Canada did.
It's always going to win in the end.
You guys got this.
But yes, thank you for coming on, Neith.
Yeah, no problem. I think you guys should do like more of this. Maybe pick better topics and like, or not better topics, but like ones that like encourage.
Well, I wanted to do a really serious one, and then Hobbit was like, "You should just write a meme article to f with everybody."
I did not say that. We are going to have a very serious topic for the next one because, yeah. But thank you so much for your time, Neith.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the chat. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guy.
All right. We ready for the next one, or do you need
I'm ready, dude. Listen, I woke up late today. My Vyvanse is kicked in, though, so now I'm locked in. I'm ready to go.
Oh, my God. Okay. We're locked in.
We're locked in.
Reason Riffs is going to be coming up next.
Oh, hey.
Right, Reason Riffs.
Okay, cool. I can see his...
oh, God.
Go ahead and get your camera up real quick.
Okay, cool.
Where are you from? What city?
Me, I'm from originally from the UK, near to London, but I live in Germany.
Near to London, and you live in Germany. Okay.
And I spent a lot of time cycling around Europe, and
actually bicycling.
Yeah. I did
I see the bicycle in the background.
Oh yeah, that's the indoor trainer, and there's a guitar, and I also have one of my Warhammer models here.
Holy shit! Okay. Where in Germany do you live? Do you say what city?
Your new opponent.
I live near Leipzig. I'm a physicist.
Oh, okay. I was in Leipzig a few years ago for a dream hack, I think, or for something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think I know. It was in Leipzig Messe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Local fair.
You're a physicist.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do as a physicist?
I'm working with statistical models, so it's systems that are out of equilibrium. So if you imagine systems that are driven rather than just being in a relaxed state, then those systems I'm looking at, and you get really interesting pattern formation. So like bird flocks, for example. So when you next see a flock of birds moving around, you can think of some of the physics I work on. But it's applicable to a lot of things.
Okay.
And I also have a degree in philosophy.
Jesus.
So that was another life. So.
Okay. All right.
Get ready, Destiny. Go ahead with your opening statement, reason riffs.
Wait, my one quick question.
What?
Yeah, sure.
Wait, have I ever given a take on any physics-related thing that's made you cringe that you think I'm wrong about?
Yes. What was it? Okay. No, it was on nuclear winter. I mentioned this in the comments before.
You're the guy in chat. You said this yesterday. Fuck you. I almost called you out in chat. Yeah. You said, I'm a physicist in training or something, or I do this, and you gave a take on nuclear winter that was cringe. Fuck you.
Yeah.
What was I wrong about?
Well, you didn't understand why it wouldn't lead to further climate change, but that's an oversimplification of where the clouds settle and where the light's being reflected from. So when it's reflected from the surface, it then has a longer distance to travel, which means it gets trapped in the atmosphere. Whereas with nuclear winter, it gets reflected far higher up, and therefore it's lost into space. That's why nuclear winter is a real bugger. And the studies show that a full-out war between India and Pakistan could be a bit dangerous for us all. But
okay.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. Final question. Hobbit is trying to ruin our... Wait. The light is... wait. Can you explain to me the difference real quick? Why is it in Venus? Why is it not the case there? Why does Venus have an atmosphere that seems to trap heat more than a nuclear winter here would reflect it more? Why?
Because the light seems to get to the ground. So it depends on the particle size. So from what I understand, the particles that would end up in the stratosphere from nuclear winter would be much larger. So there's a high likelihood of the light being reflected earlier on. Whereas when the particles are smaller, so like small molecules and things like oxygen, then they're much smaller and less likely to be trapped by them. So it reaches the ground. When it reaches the ground, it heats the ground up, and then you get infrared that's emitted. Infrared is much more easily kept inside the atmosphere. We're kind of buggered when that happens. So Venus is...
infrared is basically just like heat being emitted from a thing. And if the ground heats up and the heat's being emitted, then that's way worse than all the energy being sent back into outer space from like the clouds or whatever. So
well, infrared is also light, but a non-visible light, effectively. And so it's a different wavelength. It's a larger wavelength, so it gets trapped more easily.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the same stuff, so to say, yeah.
Okay. All right, go. Sorry. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want you to feel intellectually spare for a micro moment before you get obliviated on your housing takes.
No, I really, it's a joy for me to share these my understanding. But on housing, I actually have two disagreements with you, but I'm going to put one to a side because your article was about the individual's perspective and the individual's context. So there's the broader discussion around the housing market, how much should be left in the market, how much state involvement, if any, should be involved. We're going to leave that to one side. Hopefully one day I'll get to debate you again on this.
Okay.
You came from a perspective of the individual, and from the individual, I can delineate like two key things. One is the financial, and one is the psychological aspects of renting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you seem to be in this position where you're suggesting, I mean, from your article, it's generally like that, renting good, buying bad. But from the discussion so far, you seem to be compromising your position somewhat. Is that fair?
Well, we write articles to be a bit more, hyperbolic to get the interest going. But
yeah, I assume that might be the case. But nevertheless, the question is then, who is renting for, who's buying for, and what kind of percentages are we talking here? Can we even go as far as to say that for the majority of people, let's say in the US, that buying is preferable?
That buying is preferable. Well, I mean, you're bringing the question. Yeah, it's preferable, but why is it preferable, right? I think those are the things I usually want to question.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just laying the groundwork for where we might disagree.
Sure. In the United States, most people look very highly upon owning a home, even a bad home, versus renting an apartment or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's because also it's more plausible than, say, in Germany. I mean, I'm from the UK. In UK, the percentage is a little different. It's more towards what the US is like. That's because of the destruction during World War II. The lack of supply after World War II led to a culture of renting. And that because it was a lot of state building of houses, a lot of it was rented out, given out as social housing, and this created a culture in which it became acceptable to rent. So that's kind of the historical ground for why in Germany it's a little different, and many European countries, but not so much in the UK. In the UK, there's a similar culture to the US of, my house is my castle. That's the saying in the UK. And there is this culture that's similar to the US. So I think it reflects upon it being possible, and then it becomes a status symbol to some extent. So I agree that there's a bias towards it, as if it's black and white, always good, never good to rent. That said, I mean, some of the aspects on the financial side of things, I've heard you say this before in previous streams, that it's just preferable to put it into an ETF rather than putting it into a mortgage.
Or literally any other asset class, yeah.
Okay, and you think this is a pretty clear-cut argument for renting?
If your argument is just about like wealth building, then I attack the wealth building argument by saying that there are far better ways to build wealth. Yeah.
Okay, so you're taking on that.
So one of the main things that I attack when it comes to the financial underpinnings of owning a home is people are incapable of viewing home ownership as a consumption. People don't view homes as consumable goods when you're consuming it, and there's even like depreciation tied to that because it requires like maintenance and upkeep. So because people have this view that a house is just an asset that appreciates in value, it's not a consumption good. When they view renting an apartment, they always use that phrase, "You're setting a pile of money on fire." And it's like, well, no, you're not. You're spending money to have a home, or to have an apartment in this case, right? So the people who talk about like owning a home as like like building wealth or whatever, I'd say, well, no, this is a consumable thing that you have, just like it could be an apartment, and it's conceivable that you could save money renting an apartment than you would owning a home, and then you could just invest the difference, and that would give you more worth, more value, or more net worth or whatever later on. Yeah.
Okay, and on average, you're saying that it would be you get more net worth from renting. And then from saving money from renting, because
almost certainly,
except
for in exceptional circumstances. I call them exceptional, but maybe they wouldn't. So, for instance, if you're not going to be in a place for at least 5 years, you're almost always better off renting. But like if you're in a place where like I'm going to go buy a house, I'm here for like the next decade, my kids are going to be born here, we're going to school or whatever, then in these cases, I think that the wealth argument can start to shift in favor of the homeowner. Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I was looking at US statistics. I've tried to give you home advantage here and look at US statistics, not focus on the world because it's just more complex. And people move on average like 11 times in their lifetime, but the vast majority is before the age of 45. So you're saying that after the age of 45, it's not comparable to buy.
Can you hear this? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I can. It sounds like
literally
it's a roller coaster, right?
This is what your continent's going to sound like in 10 years, okay, after Russia's over Ukraine. So sorry.
I think 5 years actually at this rate.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, sorry, repeat, go ahead, say that again.
Yeah, basically, the moving argument really is for under 45s. And after 45, if you have enough money or enough income, then you're able to get a mortgage. And it's perhaps preferable then, because people aren't moving so much, very rarely after 45.
Yeah, perhaps it comes down to lifestyle decisions or like what the reason for that is. Yeah, it's hard to know how much is baked in as like a cultural expectation versus like what is a thing like that people naturally gravitate towards. Like, I don't know, for instance, in a society where renting was more acceptable, maybe older people would be a tad more mobile. But in the United States, they just settle down in some place and sit there forever.
I'm going to make some points actually about my own context. It's anecdotal, so let it be. But this week I had a 20% increase on my rent given to me. The reason it wasn't higher, by the way, is because of rent controls in Germany, which I know you're not that keen on, but they were a saving grace. In my context, I can't really see any of the disadvantages in terms of the current German housing market.
Well, of course you can't. You're a beneficiary of rent control.
Well, exactly. But I mean, I don't.
The federal government would give me $1 million. I wouldn't see any downsides to that either. Yeah, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but you could say that it would reduce the supply of housing because it become less advantageous. But, I mean, in Germany, there's a supply shortage, but it's no different from anywhere else in the world at the moment.
I feel like Germany actually is recently, there have been studies coming out, I think focused on, Berlin, that show that like rent control is kind of with the stock of housing and everything, but
Berlin's a screwed up basket case. I mean, there's a lot of complexity to it. It's grown far too quickly. Leipzig is undergoing this to some extent. I don't live in Leipzig. I live in a satellite city to it. But
okay. But sorry, go ahead. So you're the beneficiary of rent control. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a beneficiary of rent control, which I'm very grateful for. And I think actually in the German context, it's very modest. 20% is still a lot in 1 year.
That's actually insanely high. When we talk about rent control, like in the United States, I feel like you're talking like can somebody tell me, like, I feel like I know somebody like in Canada and Toronto, people that their rent control is like 2 to 3% per year, unironically. And I think in California, I think it's similar. Like 20% that's a really big like rent control thing. But okay, Jesus. As in like your rent can grow up quite a bit, but yeah, okay.
I mean, exactly. The rent control can be quite modest, right? And then perhaps in that case, you can argue for it.
Okay, yeah. So, like I would argue, like 20% almost seems like protection against like supply shocks or something. Like if your rent was 2,000 euros, a month, and then your landlord wants to raise it higher than 2,400 could be your next rent. Like if you want to go higher than that, geez, that just seems crazy. But okay, sorry, keep it on code.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a tangent. This wasn't really around my main points, but it was the fact that renting is incredibly volatile, actually. And the volatility tends not to be as much during recessions. But what's interesting, if you look at recessions, is the number of evictions in the US per capita was higher than the number of people that experienced foreclosure, even in the 2008 crisis, which, was all about the housing bubble. So the notion that eviction or that renting is less volatile than buying, I think that's a misnomer. I would go as far as to say that for the vast majority of people, unless you've got a really substantial income, which in either case then reduces that volatility for you, you can just move or buy elsewhere, or have enough savings to cover a mortgage if you lose your job. That on average, renting is far more of a volatile, and for the psychological side of things, which is a little bit difficult to get a metric for.
I think I think there's two ways that I would look at the volatility related to that. So one, I'll make the boring level one rejection, is that it wouldn't surprise me that renters were more likely to be evicted than homeowners foreclosed on, just because financially you're probably more in a better spot to be a homeowner than you are if you're renting, just in the United States, how the culture goes. Now, it's possible that whatever you're citing, maybe they control for that, or this was just like a broad look at the statistics. But also, when I talk about volatility as well, the outcomes in terms of how volatile personally it is to your life, I don't know if that's like a real expression, is different as well. So for instance, let's say that I say that, did you know that twice as many people are injured playing football as they are playing basketball, right? Controlling for all the other stats. And let's say that when I look at a basketball, let's say that the average injury is a sprained ankle, but then let's say that when I look at football, the average injury is a sprained ankle, and twice as many people are injured in football as basketball. But in basketball, the average injury is your leg gets cut off. Even if twice as many people are injured when it comes to basketball, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, equating this to the housing market, getting evicted from an apartment sucks, but and maybe I'm over relying on like personal experience. Getting foreclosed on a house can be like financially ruinous for like the next decade of your life. I don't know. I wish I had these stats offhand, but like I don't know how many of these people have to file bankruptcy after that. You could be on the hook for like a ton of money. There's just like a whole bunch of like obligations that you have relating to a home where if you can't pay it, you're in a really state. Versus an apartment, generally the worst thing to do is just kick you out. And it's like,
Well, I mean, you can often downsize. I would assume after losing a home of a certain size, and if you can find a way of doing that with the family size that you have. So I think it's a bit ambiguous as to really the consequence. I mean, I can see your analogy. It's a good one. It's the probability versus risk.
One big thing that I think a lot of people that don't own homes know, and maybe it's different in Europe. So in the United States, every time you buy and sell a home, there's a little speed bump that you have to go over that could be significant depending on your financing situation or your money situation, and it's closing costs on a loan. So anytime you buy or sell a home, you have to pay. There are closing costs that I think are around 5.5%, I think, that go to the mortgage place or whatever. So if I buy a home for like $1 million, there's like an extra $30,000 to $50,000 that I just have to pay just for like closing the loan. So anytime you buy and sell a home, this is why I say, like, if you're going to be in a place for at least 5 years, it starts to become more worthwhile. But buying and selling homes over and over again can be a very costly endeavor.
Yeah, well, they're saying that mortgages are tax deductible in the US, right? Up to like $500,000 for a couple.
It's not relevant for most people, but the interest that you pay month to month can be tax deductible, such that it's removed from your gross income, your taxable gross income. But this is way
substantial at the beginning when you're paying off the initial costs, and the interest is the total interest will be higher. So that's really good for first-time buyers.
Not really, but it gets into complicated tax reasons. But like for instance, let's say that I have a mortgage for $1 million, and let's say that on the first month, or not $1 million. Let's say we have a $500,000 mortgage. Let's say that I pay $4,000 a month. Let's say that by the end of the year, let's say that I've paid. We'll say $3,000 a month. Let's say I've paid like $30,000 in interest. That just means that I can knock off, if I'm overcoming my standard deduction, because you also have to itemize your taxes as well to take advantage of the interest deduction on those. It's like by the time you get through everything, it does save some money if your home is large enough and you're paying enough, but because the standard deduction in the US is so high, this is like getting into tax shit. It's the amount of money that people save on home introductions is not very meaningful to poor people, I guess. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. But I mean, the other side of it is I think you would bring up the S&P, like let's say 7-10% average a year increase, and ETFs can perform in this way. And then you'd say, well, the average increase in house price from 85 to, which years did I take? From 85 to 2025 was like 4.5%. So your argument would be that the percent increase is lower here.
Well, not only that, but there's also, to get that 4 or 5% increase, it's even less because because the house is a depreciating asset. You have to pay maintenance on it, right? If you take that exact same house and you age it 40 years, if you haven't replaced the roof, if you haven't replaced the HVAC or the air conditioning, or if you haven't updated, the interior, like it's way less, right?
There was a study in 2024 that showed that 90% of repairs actually increase the value of the house. So it's not all clear cut. It's often an upgrade, and you can use it as an upgrade. So it's again about comparing these two things is a little bit tricky. And the other side of it is,
I would be curious to that thing real quick, because it increases the value of the home. Any repair for sure will increase the value of the home. But the question is does it increase the value of the home more than the cost of the repair, whatever? And
in this study, it was 90% of cases actually increase the value of the home. But I haven't looked at the detail of the study. It was just one counter argument I thought I'd bring forward this evening.
Okay. I'd be curious to say that, because when I was in the market for homes, I had always heard that it was a big myth, that if you put in like a new $40,000 kitchen, you can sell the home for like 20 or 30,000 more, but you're never recouping. The only people that can actually make money on additions like that are people that specialize in fixing up homes. But if you're paying like a contract, you're paying somebody else to do an add-on or an addition to your home, it'll increase the value of the home, but it's always going to cost you more than what the increased value of the home would be. But
yeah, I don't think that's what the study was pointing at. It was actually pointing at that otherwise, like if it increases by $1, then you can say, well, it's one of these cases. And then why would the other 10% not increase the value of the home by even $1? Okay. So I think it was insinuating that compared to the cost, it was actually increasing the value of the home. Okay. And the other thing is the big thing about mortgage, which is why when you actually look at the percentages, it is favorable from a financial perspective, is that mortgage is massive leverage. So, I mean, a conservative leverage in conservative case in the US would be, say, a 9-to-1 leverage. You put a 10% down payment, and then if you can get this kind of leverage on a fairly low risk asset, like a stock that is going to go up, you can make some insane money. And then you're looking at like 12% interest. It's equivalent to 12% interest with the money that you're putting in, compared to the 4.5% increase in the value of the home. And of course, it's the home and the land, right? So the depreciation is on the home itself, not on the land. So it's also a question of, if you own valuable land, I mean, you could have a wreck on some valuable land, but that's going to be a good asset. So again, there's the ambiguity there. But
that's actually not ambiguous. That's actually a real point. But most mortgageoids are too stupid to understand leveraging, so that never comes up. So, but no, that is true. One of the few ways that you can argue that home ownership is advantage to stocks is that if I put $1 million in the stock market, my $1 million can appreciate, but that's it. If I put $1 million into a home, I'm actually leveraging that 5-to-1, 10-to-1, 20-to-1. If you have an FHA loan, maybe 5%, and now you're actually appreciating the value based on leveraging, like 20-to-1 or 10-to-1 or 5-to-1. Yeah, and that can be true. Although I would argue, we're going a little bit into the weeds on this, but I would argue that actually ends up creating harmful downstream distortionary effects on markets, because what happens in these cases is there is a tax that most economists view highly favorably, and that tax is a property tax. And one of the scary things about people that are leveraging their income to buy a home, meaning they found a way to have an asset that is appreciating in value substantially because they only have to invest a little bit into it, is that those people are then not able to handle the maintenance fees on that asset if those maintenance fees are related to tax increases. So then you end up in these really weird distortionary markets, like in California, where they're like, well, if you're going to have a tax increase on a thing, the tax can only go up like 2% per year, because now you have these people that are oddly tax priced out of the homes that they live in. So you have these people with these homes worth millions of dollars that aren't making any money, they don't have any cash flow, and they're saying, I can't afford the property taxes, we need to get rid of them. You can argue that's the fault of the homeowner, that you could just not do that, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, this would feed back into the issues for renters, right? Because, I mean, of course, a rented home is also owned by somebody else who experiences this themselves. And so then they push that. That's one of the reasons why my rent's gone up, is because there will be increased costs for the homeowner. So in the end, this gets pushed onto renters anyway. Plus, there's the additional volatility if the area is just in demand, and so they can put the prices up beyond the costs.
Sure, but I'm okay with those costs. I want to sound harsh here. I'm okay with those costs being pushed onto renters, though. Much the same because I'm okay with those costs being eaten by homeowners as well. If a homeowner wants to leverage their income and buy, or they want to leverage some capital, they want to buy a house, and they want to deal with the property taxes, I'm totally okay with that. Much the same that if a landlord wants to do that, then that's fine as well. I just think the pricing in an area should always reflect the asset value and the taxation. When you have landlords there, it will reflect both those values because they'll pass it on to renters, which I think kind of the consumption should move along with like the economic opportunities available in the area and all that. Whereas if you have homeowners there, they're going to try to push down that cost of the taxation, which I think creates bad distortionary effects. One thing that I think is okay, but a lot of people really hate to hear this. I don't know if the feeling is different in Europe than America. In America, we hate this, but I think it's okay sometimes. I don't think that everybody should be able to afford to live in every single area. I think it's okay to say like this city is too expensive for people that work this type of labor to live here. Like probably only the people that can work here should probably be able to live here. But when you try to create a market where everybody can live everywhere, all the distortionary effects just end up destroying, like any coherent economic policy.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I mean, it's an issue of inequality and not accepting any inequality whatsoever. It's a broader issue, right?
Yeah.
And that sometimes there will be some inequality. It can actually be a motivator. But then it's a question of why and who can afford to live somewhere. So London's an interesting case because a lot of people who actually work in London can't afford to live there. There's a number of cases, thousands of cases of people living in garden sheds and garages, the kind of accommodation that people shouldn't be living in. And 3.4% of houses are actually empty. A lot of homes are owned as a form of equity, which is then distorting the market in itself. So ownership there is, this goes against the previous debater's point. Like ownership can actually be very anti-democratic and can drive inequality. That's not a good thing. I think the idea of a priori being entitled to a home, I think it's ridiculous. We should be entitled to the necessities that keep us healthy, but the size of homes and such like, I think people on average in democracies in general are perhaps too used to a level of luxury or an expectation. I don't know why it's driven that way. And there's too much a sense of entitlement, I think, there. And I think that's also true within housing.
Yeah. I guess I wish people could understand that, like, if you want a certain thing, then you can have that thing, but there are going to be trade-offs associated with it. But sometimes it feels like people want all the good without any of the trade-off on the bad, which gets frustrating.
Sounds a bit like Brexit, to be honest.
A little bit, yeah. Also, I don't know. I've never heard a solution from neoliberals or from like housing haters like me. I've never heard a good solution for how do you have a combination of different people living in a city because you need all those people to work those jobs. So like using the most hyperbolic example, you go to San Francisco, you need these like tech jobs. Obviously, that's what these people do. And these people like earn on the low end, like $250,000 a year. But you also need baristas for your coffee shops. You need janitors for your buildings. Like, I don't know how you create a situation where those people can also live there without having to commute into work an hour. I don't know I've never heard a good solution for that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Reason Riffs, go ahead and give your closing if that's answering Destiny's question right there.
I'll go back to the main point.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Cool. Okay. I wasn't paying too much attention there, but no, I've really enjoyed that. She's really, really good natured. Now I'm going to go back to the original point that just simply comparing the increase in house prices and with performance of ETFs is a bit of a misnomer. You need to look at the leverage that you can get on mortgages. I think the volatility brought about by evictions, okay, you may say that you're not going to go bankrupt as a result, but you got to think about where you live in regards to your job. That's kind of reflecting upon what we're talking about at this point in time and the importance of that. Housing it's got a luxurious element to it, but it's ultimately a necessity, and that's contingent on your life as to your work, your family, schooling. So evictions can be incredible upheaval. And I think if you look at the ownership in the US, 2/3 of Americans own a home. And to follow, Destiny's mentality with regards to market-driven, markets knowing best, perhaps it's the fact that the market does know best in the US and that for 2/3 of Americans is the right thing.
Cringe. Okay, can I ask you one other unrelated question? Do you think that Brett Weinstein or Eric Weinstein, do you think he was as smart as Sean Carroll? Think they're about on the same level?
Oh, wow. That's cringe. That was cringe. I was actually reading his physics at the same time, or trying to. He didn't have much his model doesn't bring much to to the fore. Just because string theory is not proven doesn't mean to say that his model is any better. And when you look at it, it doesn't solve problems such as renormalization issues. And it's not really my area of expertise in physics, so I will put it out there. But he himself is just an influencer who's about likes and clicks. He was a hedge fund manager for a long time. I'm not a philosopher because I have a philosophy degree. I'm a physicist now, with still interest in philosophy. Yeah, he was. I mean, your take was spot on with regards to him.
Okay, just curious.
Okay, Reason Riffs, thank you. If you guys want to catch more Reason Riffs opinions and things that if you like his style, he is one of our newest people that are on the Pragmatic Papers. He's got a really interesting backstory. He really did cycle around. He shared a couple of pictures within our news Discord. Super interesting, guys. Thank you for coming out, man.
He got at gunpoint twice, in both times in Turkey, actually.
By military people or by non-military people?
One case was by the Turkish military because I was taking pictures near a military institution installation, and the other case was the PKK. And then when they realized I was a tourist, they laughed and invited me to drink tea with them, and then I took their portrait.
Do you ever run it coming from areas? I'm assuming PKK. You're what, in southeast Turkey?
East Turkey, not.
Do you ever run into issues coming back from there to Turkey proper? Did how sus are the military people?
No, it's not like going to Transnistria. I actually got into Transnistria. There's part of Moldova that's effectively Russian.
And the north.
That was more treacherous because the Moldovan security guards at the unofficial border were like, you've just illegally come into our country. And I was like, oh, nice to meet you.
It is very annoying how many of these like autonomous free zones, like Transnistria in Moldova, and then the two, I've always fucked the names up, but the South Ossetia and whatever in Georgia, and then you see the same exact thing happening in Ukraine, and people are like, oh, like Russia would never do this again, or this is a one-time thing. It's like it's literally an exact repeat of Georgia. It's fairly similar, I feel, to the Moldova stuff. It's very fucking annoying.
It's getting worse every time. Like Putin's taking more and more risks, and the suffering. It's about the personal level as well. I mean, I know at least one family that's lost a father in this war. They're Russian speaking, by the way. This stupid talking point that the Russian speakers want to go to Russia. Well, the Irish who speak English don't want to go to England, that's for sure. It goes down to the individual level and how tragic it is. And there's also these issues in Turkey with minorities and the Turkish government, but they're not quite on the level of Putin. But if you at some point want me to share some stories about my journeys, we can. Feel free to drop me a line. And
okay, cool, sounds good.
I'm just curious. Before I drag the next person in, you would give the point that like land appreciation in a place that is like decently like never gonna like go under. Like you're talking about your LAs, your Seattles, your major like city areas that aren't just going to like collapse overnight. You would like say that investing in land in those areas is actually a good investment vehicle.
Maybe, although I would be careful because like doing real estate is a lot different than buying a home and moving into it. I think these are two totally separate things and two totally separate conversations. It's the difference between like saying like I'm going to buy a car because I think I'm going to make money with a car. And you're like, what do you mean? And somebody's like, well, taxi drivers make money with cars. It's like, okay, well, you're going to do Uber or taxi? And it's like, no, I'm just going to buy the car. That's a lot different. Well, buying a home is a lot different than investing in real estate and renting it out to other people, I think.
I guess what I would be asking is, would you tell somebody that's a bad investment vehicle if they bought a house like 15 miles out of Los Angeles and they were going to live in it? Would you say that that person is making a worse decision than you going and renting in that
I would almost always tell somebody that if you're considering whether you want to buy a place versus renting, that the appreciation of a property it should be like basically at the bottom of your considerations. The top thing should be like, what do you want? Do you want to live in a place where you have like the independence to be loud or to do construction side or whatever? Because in that case, you're leaning towards a house. Or do you want to have more freedom to move? Or do you know how long you're going to be in an area? These are considerations to be way, way, way at the top of my list. The appreciation on the value in the long term would be almost at the very bottom. Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious through what I've heard. So, okay, we are going to drag up Cav Sir, my buddy with the fantastic view. There we go. Right there. He's trying to stun on you, actually. So,
yeah, I guess. Wait, can you tell me, are you in the US?
You're muted,
yes.
Cav Sir.
No, thank God. Never, dude. Holy shit. America?
Fuck you, dude. Where are you? What city?
Vancouver. Canada. There's an American city called Vancouver, dude. You guys are crazy, man.
Okay. What do you got? Okay, what do you got for me?
All right, start.
So are we doing an America debate or are we doing a world debate?
World.
Whatever the fuck you want to
Okay.
debate, dude.
Dude, for how smart you are, DGG is. How have you arrived at the conclusion that buying an apartment is the best of the two worlds? That's like the worst option of the two.
Why is it the worst option?
Because you don't get the land. You don't get the like improvement aspect. You get like literally the same thing as renting, where your investment just dies after like 50 years, except...
Wait, what do you mean you don't get the... Well, you get the property that you are buying? What do you mean?
Yeah, but apartments have a lifespan. I mean, all buildings have lifespans, right? But the thing with the house is you can rebuild, but you can't rebuild apartments.
How often do apartments just fall over?
Dude, apartments have only been a thing for like, I think like Soviets built a lot of like big things, but we haven't seen it yet, but it's going to happen soon. In China, dude, apartments are falling everywhere. And where I'm from, India. Dude,
Okay, well, listen.
It's-
in the United States, apartments don't fall like that. Our apartments last a long time, so fuck you.
Buildings have lifespans. The reason a home is a good investment is because it lasts forever.
Yeah, but it lasts for... Well, it doesn't last forever. You've got to pay a lot of money to maintain it, right?
Yeah, but you have ownership of that piece of land forever.
You don't... No, you don't.
it's
The
your
fucking
land.
country owns it. You don't even have technically You gotta pay taxes on it, right? You're paying upkeep on the land via kind of in a way, like for taxes. You still pay something monthly on it, right?
And you don't own the fucking US dollars you have because they can just take it back whenever and sanction you. But the world, this is how the world works. You like have some things.
Yeah, sure. I'm just saying, if you buy a house, you have the house and you have the piece of land. If you buy a condo or an apartment, you have the apartment. I guess theoretically you don't have the land underneath it. But I think it...
Yeah,
I don't think that matters.
exactly.
I don't think, who cares?
That's exactly why
You still have access to a part of the land, no? Like, it's not like, do condos appreciate like at a lower rate than homes appreciate?
So the thing with condos is that the supply demand graph is just so good for housing that condos just benefit from the reasons why housing, like buying a house, is better because demand is locked. I mean, supply is locked.
Demand. Wait, say that. Restate that.
So the reason buying a house is better than renting is because supply of housing is locked. Like you can't just create more land.
Well, supply of condos is
Unless
locked
you're
too.
in Elon
No,
Musk.
what do you mean?
Yeah, but condos fall. That's the thing.
How
In like
often are
10 years,
condos
you're like-
falling in Vancouver in
okay,
America? I
okay.
don't think that's a thing. This is not happening all the time. What are you talking about?
So that's why I asked if it's an America or a worldwide thing. Because there's like a lot of rules in Canada, which is why like people are crying. Like it's a bad thing to have rules to build houses because people actually build stuff to spec here. But around the world, people just build apartments like however they want. And like, so in my apartment where I'm from, the apartment my father bought, it's like, well, we have 3 bathrooms where we don't use one of them because it smells like shit all the time because they didn't build the sewer system right.
Wait, and where?
India.
Oh, okay. I can't argue about property in India. Okay, maybe in India it's a lot different. I have no idea. Or in China or
You
whatever.
said worldwide.
Okay, worldwide means Western Europe and North America. Okay, that's what worldwide
Dude.
means. Come on, I didn't say
buddy.
I didn't say
but-
all the worlds. Okay,
What part of the population lives in Western like it's like
the parts that I
30% of
care
the
about.
population or
The
something.
only parts that I care about. Yeah, that's right. Welcome,
Okay.
welcome to the West, my friend. Yeah.
okay, but the point is buildings sell on lifespans. Your apartment isn't going to last 100 years.
I don't know. I don't think. Listen, you have a very temporary view of buildings. Okay, maybe because your country is young, but over here in the new world, all right, our buildings last a long time. All right, they don't just fall over all the time. I don't know where you're getting this idea that they just fall over constantly. And if the city wanted to demolish it, I bet they would have to pay us out. Also, yeah, I don't live for 100 years. I'm not a fucking vampire, so I'll sell that shit before 100 years is over. Okay.
No, but okay, so in finance, when you're looking at investment, the first thing people tell you is time. Time is how you make money. The real thing is time. Nothing else makes you money. So that's why homes are the best investment because they have the longest time horizon.
Is that even true? How many like 100-plus-year-old homes are people buying and selling? I feel like that's pretty exceptional.
This apartment is like 100 years old.
Oh, and it's still standing. It's not falling over.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The falling over thing is an exaggeration. But what I'm saying is, let's say like when shit starts going out, you're gonna be like, oh my god, I wish I owned this home because I could fix it. I have the money to fix it. But these fucking shitty ass landlords are not fixing shit.
You don't think they would have a vested interest in fixing and maintaining the property so it doesn't fall over and they lose their entire...
No. Okay, stop saying fall over, dude. I was exaggerating.
Also, look at your beautiful view. What house are you going to buy that has that
Yeah,
view?
yeah.
Exactly, right?
Okay,
My God.
I could never afford this, yeah. Because I'm 24. Again, it's a time thing.
And look, renting is giving you
But the
access
point
to property that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. That's amazing. You're like the biggest, the proest argument for being a rentoid.
Dude, I'm not saying rentoid is bad. I'm just saying it's a worse financial investment compared to owning a home.
Yeah, but
And by the way, I busted my ass to get here. It wasn't fun. And if I didn't, like, this is actually what made this worth it. If just living here is not worth it, bro. Paying this money for it.
What is your rent? Can I guess?
Yeah.
You're in Vancouver proper, not like some fucking suburb. I'm guessing, right? It's probably like I'm gonna guess 40. I'm gonna guess 4,000 a month.
I live with another dude.
You live in what?
I live with
You live with another
I have
dude.
roommates.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's okay, dude. We accept that. Wait.
So
What
2,000?
is your rent? Wait, what is the rent for that unit a month?
Okay, so let's do half of what you said. 2,000, like US.
Okay,
Is that your guess?
my guess was 4,000. Is it? I don't know how big your unit is, though. I guess.
It's a single bedroom.
Oh, you're a single bedroom with a guy. Well, that's cute.
Yeah. Dude, no.
What?
Sorry.
That's okay. Wait, do you guys have? Do you have a couch or anything, or do you guys just share a big bed?
No, I live in the room. He lives in the living room.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wait, what's
I
your
don't
rent a
need
month?
my-
How much does your rent cost for the unit?
Dude, it's like 1,000 US. It's less than 1,000 US.
So why do you guys cry about your
Yeah,
markets all the
yeah,
time?
exactly.
Less than wait, just for you or for
I don't know
both
what
of you
you-
combined?
Just for me.
Oh, okay. So it's like 2,000 about a month.
Yeah. Dude, but he's obviously like, he's not going to give me a good price. I bet it's less than that.
Wait, is the roommate guy subleasing? Is he renting to you? Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Also,
Counselor, you've been extended.
okay, if people are, can I take my, is clothing optional? It's really hot here.
No, the clothing's not
Clothing
optional. You have to keep your clothes on.
Okay.
Fuck me, it's hot
I'm
here.
sweating
Your
my
guy
ass
doesn't.
off.
He doesn't let you turn the fucking AC on.
We don't have ACs in Vancouver, man. This is why I fucking hate renting, dude. Because I can't just put an AC up.
You have no air conditioner in that building.
I have 2 fans on, but no air conditioning. No one in Vancouver builds air conditioning.
Holy shit! Open the
This is
window.
why I need
Wait,
to
why
own
can't
a
you open
house,
the
dude.
window? You have this huge ass window right here
It ruins the view.
to open the
And-
window.
and also,
Off your
there's like,
argument. You can't put an
Easy,
AC in there. That's because you're renting. He's trying to get you off the argument. by
No,
telling you to open
true.
the window.
I bet the window's locked, so you guys don't jump out and kill yourselves for living in Vancouver.
no, dude. It's what the fuck, dude? Literally the best city in the world, man. What are you talking about? Living in Miami, where the women you see don't even have any real anything, really?
As opposed to what, Vancouver, where all the women do fucking heroin and crack cocaine
Vancouver,
on
where you have
Hastings
all the
Street. Yeah,
Chinese
I say we're all your
the Japanese women,
your
all the
Chinese and Japanese women. They can't even fucking speak English because they're just there with their
Maybe.
fucking rich
Oh my
families before
God.
they go back to their home countries and they buy all your shit and leave it
I want
empty. And you guys are all
to the women, dude. What the fuck? It's an advantage that they don't speak English.
oh, okay, all right, Sneeko, my bad.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, I have a girlfriend back home. I'm
Oh.
highly committed.
back.
Yeah, I don't look at women.
Is she okay with you living with the guy in the flat?
Dude, I am very homophobic, so please stop doing like these insinuations. He's not at home most of the time. That's why I like this place. He has a girlfriend, and he lives at her place most of the time. I don't know why he walks around in his underwear sometimes, but other than that, we have very clear boundaries.
That's good. How long have you lived in that apartment for?
Like 3 months.
So if you have so much money and you bust your ass so much, why haven't you bought a house yet?
I don't have money. The government gave me money. That's how I can afford this.
Jesus, all the rumors are
Yeah.
true, huh? My God.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah, it's fucking great. It's amazing. Yeah.
What do you go to school for?
Dude.
Uh-oh.
Engineering,
What kind of engineering?
manufacturing.
What's wrong with that? Why are you like, dude?
Because the way I got all this money is working as a chef. It was the most,
Wait, a chef or a line cook?
line cook.
Okay, that's fine. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Jesus. Well, you said you were 24 or something, right?
24. Yeah, today is my birthday.
Well, happy birthday, dude. Oh my God.
My God.
Did your girlfriend call you? Did you talk to her yet today?
No, she's asleep right now.
Shouldn't she have called you yesterday? Would that have been your birthday for her or whatever?
Yeah, she wanted to, but I said no. Wait until it's my birthday in my time zone, and then yeah. Why, dude? No. Back to the point.
Yeah.
Why do you think why are you trying to buy an apartment? Dude, it's a really bad idea. My dad bought an apartment. It was the worst financial decision he's ever made. Dude, he actually has the potential to like, I could have never worked. I could have worked 0 days in my life if he used like 2 brain cells, but he bought a fucking apartment and it ruined my
Bro,
life.
your dad literally sounds like he fucking lives in India and now you're in Canada studying engineering. It sounds like you guys are doing okay. Have some goddamn thanks for your dad. You better tell him thank you. You better tell him thank you, Dad, for making sure I could speak English and work on computers and go to Canada. Look at you shitting all over your fucking parents.
If
and
he
the life
just
they
gave
give
me the money,
Yeah.
I could have been fucking, Nepo baby, just chilling, fucking playing Warcraft all day. Instead, I have to go fucking work as a line cook with an engineering degree.
Wait, have you already finished school?
Yeah, I graduated like 2 years ago.
Oh, wait, are you still cooking?
I go every Saturday.
You go every Saturday?
Yeah.
How do you
the
fucking
government
live?
just get-
How do you work 1 day a week? How do you survive?
The government, dude, the government.
What the fuck do they give you money for?
I don't pay taxes. They give me all my taxes back because tuition credits.
I thought you said you were done with school.
No, but it carries over. It's like it carries over indefinitely. I have like a 90K I think left. So the next 90K I make just comes back to me. I don't pay taxes.
Okay, I understand that, but how do you earn enough money for working 1 Saturday a week to survive?
Oh no, savings and also investments, bro. Have you seen the stock market, dude? I literally close my eyes, buy anything, and it like 10x's in a month, dude. It's
Okay, well so you misrepresented that background a little bit. Okay, Jesus. What city?
I made like
Okay, what city do you live in, or what city are you from in India?
dude, I don't want to talk about it, man.
Why?
I fucking hate that country.
Oh my God! Wait, when did you go to Canada? How old were you?
18.
Damn.
19.
Wait, could you speak English fluently before? I imagine probably before going to Canada.
Yeah. I was on the news because I won a debate competition when I was like 10. I am the best English speaker in the country. No, in the state.
And you won a debate competition in India or in Canada?
In the state. No, back home.
Okay. What was the debate over?
Yeah.
When you were 10?
Yeah. Like 12 or something. 12, 14, something like that.
Can I ask a question? Do you eat beef?
Yeah.
Does your family eat beef, or is that really bad in most of India still? Do you tell them that, or do you lie about that when your dad asks you or whatever?
The thing about no, I don't tell him I like smoke weed and stuff, but I tell him I eat beef.
Damn, you smoke weed? I told you, see? You're on that Vancouver grind. You're going to be injecting soon.
Dude, okay. The whole thing, sorry. Before I go into this, the whole reason I made like 16K off the stock market because it's just so
Okay.
and that's the other reason why homeowning is stupid. The stock market is so dude. Like
Yeah, exactly.
5%
See,
of the
if you
US
would have
economy.
wasted all that money on a house, you wouldn't be making all this money in the stock
I would
market.
have a house.
What?
I would have a fucking house though.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be making all this money in the stock market. You'd be sitting on some cringe loser house and...
No. Okay. I'm smart, so I made the money. But if I was like slightly stupider, like all my friends investing in Tesla, which is worth like every other car company combined, and it's like 5% of the US fucking market, and that's my primary tool of investment, I feel like that's a million times worse than having a house.
That is true. But I mean, like, at that point, you could say, if you've got investing friends, they're better off just putting the money under their mattress and not touching it, right? Because they're going to lose it all anyway,
it's still
right?
better to buy a house.
No, but I'm saying versus them investing. Like, you could say that they should just like not spend their money at all. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, you
buy a
were
house.
comparing them making bad investment decisions to buying a house, but I was saying they could also just like not spend their money at all, and that'd be a better investment decision than making bad investment decisions. Where would you
Dude,
buy a
that's
house
not-
at? Listen, if you're going to buy a house, where would you even buy a house at?
Cities always grow. That's one thing.
Yeah, you think you could afford a
Cities
house
never
here right now? How many roommates walking around in their underwear would you have to have?
Dude. So it's a time thing again. So right now, I feel like I don't have for my investment portfolio, I don't think a house is the right investment right now. Because as you said, it'll become my primary investment vehicle, which is like stupid.
Okay.
But when I'm your age, when I'm a fucking unk, Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that's not, that's, but I've given that. If you're like, if you want to be in some place for 5 or more years and you think you're going to be there for a long time, I think buying a house.
No. If I have a lot of money, I'd buy a house.
Where
If I
at?
have enough money. Like a tier 2 city in India.
Do you have tier 2? Is that like the caste 2 system or what does that even mean? What is tier 2?
No, population.
Oh, okay. Are you worried about your country getting blown up anytime soon or?
Okay, so the thing about India is, it's actually like, I feel like it's more than one country. It's really different. Like the north and south is really like, if any of where I'm from is the south, right? And I feel like in the south, if they were like, hey, let's fight war against Pakistan, I mean, most of the people are going to be like, I don't really care about Pakistan.
You're from the south, aren't you?
Yeah.
You are. How many servants did your family have? Be honest.
Dude.
Just
no, they work in the coffee estate. They're laborer coffee estate.
They work in the what? Coffee state?
Estate. Yeah. And then their kids help with the housework.
What does that mean, work in the coffee estate?
So my family is like, not farmers, but I guess farmers. So we have labor that does labor stuff. There is some caste system stuff to it, but let's just pretend that isn't.
Okay. That's great. I have plantation
it's not caste.
Ancestors as well, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's actually a skin color thing. Anyways.
Jesus.
Your ancestors?
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
It sounds like your family does decently. How many siblings do you have?
One. Dude, my family does do decently. I'm like probably top.
Well, you were just fucking ragging on your dog here for not, or on your dad.
Right. He is a dog.
Sorry. I mean, you're ragging on your dad for like no reason. Damn. You're like, my dad should have bought a house. Meanwhile, your dad owns a fucking plantation, a fucking business.
Dude, his siblings have way more money. And, okay. So here's the thing. So my dad actually, so he's insanely smart, obviously, big props. He's a smart dude. He's really qualified. And he made a ton of money in his life, right?
Okay.
But because of his poor financial decisions, I think, like my mom's brother, he's just a fucking farmer. He's just.
What's your,
like, he didn't make any money.
What's the worst financial decision your dad made?
Buying an apartment, dude.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you, it's the worst thing you can do ever. Because 20 years down the line, okay, maybe America's different, but 20 years down the line, like the elevator's going to be outdated. And so it's not stuff that's like the building's falling over. It's like middle ground stuff. It's like, it's not a shitty place to live, but it's not built new. So it's not like a great place to live either. So the value is like, how well did your building, does your apartment like keep up with like technology and stuff? And it's like, at that point.
Wait, when you say your dad bought an apartment, do you mean, did he buy like a condo or did he buy like the entire building?
Yeah. No. What the fuck?
Okay, how big is the apartment? Like how many bedrooms?
3.
Jeez, okay.
No, it was really cheap when I grew up.
Okay. Do you guys use feet or do you use meters in India?
Meters.
Okay.
It's the thing I said about cities growing. Cities always grow. So if you buy a house in a city, you will always make money.
Well, the asset will increase, but then you have to spend money to maintain it, right?
Dude, suck my dick. Yeah, but it's not like you get to enjoy the money you spend. I get to enjoy the AC if I buy an AC.
I get to enjoy the money I spend right now in my apartment. I'm enjoying it right now. I'm living here.
Yeah, but 10 years down the line, it's gone. Like 5 years down the line, it's gone. Because you move or whatever.
Yeah, but how much money do you spend on dumb shit to own a house? How much time do you have to spend? Do you have lawns in India? I bet you have to do some kind of outdoor work.
Our maid comes like every month to clean the place, but it's empty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a labor thing. It's a labor thing. There's just too many people in India. Yeah.
It is about 50-50 on who won, but we know for sure that Kavser's roommate is actually their boyfriend. That
Jesus, what?
Was actually found in this poll.
He just said he's homophobic. That can't possibly be the case.
Yes. Everyone, please. Do not be confused.
The poll does not lie. Kavser, thank you for joining us. If you want to give your last word.
Your height?
And yep.
My last word.
Yeah.
Are you trying to get into politics? Are you trying to affect real political change?
We'll see. Why? This is
I mean,
your
it's that
last
goal
word, not mine.
you have in life.
My goal
Yes.
right now, I don't know. I guess is to save up enough money to buy all the condos. Is my current goal, and hope that the building doesn't fall over.
Yeah, and then Nathan will be back in 20 years saying the same shit as me.
Exactly.
Because it's a fucking terrible decision, dude.
Yeah, he'll be left a streaming empire, and he'll be like, "Why didn't my dad buy a house?"
My last word I wanted to say is, you should be less. You should worry less about like being right and more about being likable. Anyways, thank you guys.
Oh my God, you're out of here. You're out of here, buddy. With that one, have a good day, Kaiser.
Just so you guys know, that's what the optics people look like. Okay, they act like this. This is who they are. I hope you know that.
Real quick to add on to that whole debate. The problem with condos, and I actually just had to deal with this last week, is you deal with things that you own, and then the things that you don't own can be like monumentally damaging to your experience living there. So I do electrical. I got called a guy that I work with, his buddy owns a condo. And you know how phasing works with electrical? Like, you have multiple phases.
Oh yeah, polarity and phasing and all that for sure. Yeah.
Basically, you have 220 volt phases that come into your house, and then that's how you get like 240 some stuff. Well, he lost a phase completely, and so at the meter bank outside, which is on an easement, he completely has no control over that. So I was able to look at everything in his condo that he owns, but the problem was actually in the easement that the property owner that owns the land manages. And so he was out of power for I think 7 or 8 days.
Damn.
So that is a thing that can happen with condos, is that you own that, but your easement or whoever manages the actual building itself can actually fuck you completely.
Sure.
Okay, last person. There's no Cam, but this is a person who really wants to be in here. So Wicked Demirsh, you're up.
Oh boy.
Go ahead, buddy. It's all you.
Hey, good afternoon.
Wow, hi.
All right, so I want to sum up a couple of things that some other people said, which I think is worthwhile. So actually, I'll start with Ivory Fool. He brought up the idea of civic engagement. And then, so we see in our data that about 58% of patriotic, long-term thinking homeowners turned out to vote in our 2022 midterm elections, whereas just 37% of these transient, lazy, irresponsible renters cast their ballots that same year. Like, you claim that we can make some cultural changes here, but the fact of the matter is that will only get us halfway. People are always going to be influenced by their incentives, and you can't align the incentives of short and long-term residents to be exactly the same.
Well, who did those long-term residents vote for in 2024 to give us a president? QED.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it varies actually depending on the area. Another thing is you've talked about some externalities in your tax policy, but I think we've missed discussions about positive externalities. Higher ownership areas have lower crime, high voter participation, higher fertility, but not too high in the West, better educational outcomes, higher social engagement, other than voting. And many of these are even adjusted for income and the cohorts of people. Owning, people don't just pay a mortgage, they invest long-term in a community's health over time. And that's something that I think has been underplayed a lot in this debate.
Sure, although I think that people think that this is intrinsic to owning homes, but I think this is just an American culture thing that can change. Because again, I don't think I've ever heard it brought up from any European that oh my God, guys, we're never going to match the civic engagement and social cohesion of an American because we don't all have homes. We're stuck in apartments, and so we're losers for it. I think that's a uniquely American idea, and I think we could change that culturally if we want any of the benefits that high density housing gets us.
Well, actually, I would say two things to that. The first, again, I think the incentives are going to be a little bit misaligned. But the second thing is a lot of your European points are actually just wrong on the facts. The United States and United Kingdom have approximately equal ownership rates, at least as of slightly old data. Finland has higher ownership rates than the United States. Switzerland is lower.
When you say ownership rates, though, I'm guessing those ownership rates are also incorporating people that own their apartment too, right?
It could be condos.
Yeah.
I didn't highly differentiate between family homes.
Because I think something I said earlier is that this is anecdotal, but it feels like owning an apartment in Europe is not uncommon. If somebody said that'd be whatever. In the United States, I think owning a condo is an exceptional thing. That's a very rare thing, I think, in the US. That's my intuition, at least.
Yeah, I agree. So I think there's large benefits to owning. And then when we're talking about single family homes versus condos, I think there's benefits to both of those. Like condos, of course, you get your higher density, but with single family homes, you get more square footage. You typically get yards, et cetera, which are pretty beneficial, especially the people that are looking to have children.
Yeah. But again, I think that's just because I feel like that's a strong American culture thing. Like when you have kids, you're supposed to go buy a home and like live in a suburb. I think that's just like a super heavy American cultural expectation. I don't think we need to lean as heavily into that. Like rather than having it as like the requirement, I think it could just be an option.
To some point, but I think there's two things we need. We need stability. So condos would solve this, but renting does not. It is very bad for both short and long-term outcomes for children to consistently move. It reduces life satisfaction, their ability to form social bonds, increases overall mortality. Maybe it's kind of hard to do causality with that, but like longitudinal studies show that's really bad. The second thing is also children having their own consistent like bedroom, which they have to themselves, is generally good. Often when we're fostering children, for example, that's sometimes mandatory. Like we generally want to encourage that.
Yeah,
as well.
I think, but I've said that like if you're going to be in an area for like a long time, and I think having kids is probably one of those indicators that you probably want to be in an area for a while, then I think at that point, I think considering owning something is probably better than just renting. But the majority of my audience are usually kids, or not kids, I should say, but like it's like single people or people that don't have like families or whatever. So the conversations tend to be a lot different in my community. But
yeah, I think this is a good, honest concession. But I think actually it kind of leads us towards the right thing. Owning a home isn't the right answer for every single person at every single time, but is actually something that most people should do at some point in their life. Like you've even in some talks about inequality have mentioned like their stage of life analysis. A 65-year-old should have more wealth than a 25-year-old. And the same is going to be true about housing. Because generally we want people to buy when they're about ready to settle down and have kids. And then potentially, as you've said, we want people to sell a home and then either move into, a retirement community or a smaller house, like once they're an empty nester.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. But I remember even that the conservative kid that I debated a while ago, the young conservative guy, was complaining because he was like, I'm 24 years old and now I don't know when I'm going to be able to buy a house because of Biden or whatever. Obviously, he's exaggerating a bit because he's a MAGA dude. Yep. But it's like, damn, at 24, why do you need to buy a house? But then I hear that complaint a ton where Gen Zers are like, oh my God, like we can't afford houses. We're never going to get one. It's like, bro, you're like 22, 23 years old. Right? Like you shouldn't even be thinking about buying a house right now. It's like it's not even on your time, like on any horizon for you right now. Whereas millennials are starting to get more into houses, and they are like they're settling down and having families. And yeah, I think that a time in your life analysis is important there when it comes to buying a home. But again, like there are different things that are appropriate for different, I think I'm repeating, I think you agree with this, but like there are things that are appropriate for different stages in your life. Like if you can afford a house at 22, that doesn't even necessarily make it a good decision. You probably would still be better off renting until you're like in an area where you're going to be there for a while, you're going to have the same job for a while. And then especially if you want to like settle down and have a family for a while, yeah, you're going to be there for a while.
I would agree with that. My one caveat is I think when we've seen marriage formation and child first age of having children, we might want to push home ownership to be a slightly younger than we're actually seeing right now. It doesn't need to be, 24, but, late 20s, I think we could encourage more home ownership in that demographic.
Possibly, yeah. It just depends on what pushing home ownership looks like, yeah. Because I think that we run into this weird, like really weird scenario where you have, sorry, I just read the recorded fucking thing in chat. Wait, what did you just say? Repeat that again. Oh, you said You said pushing home ownership at to lower ages. It just depends on how you push it. Because this is a thing that I bring up a lot when I listen to Ezra Klein talk about housing and everything, is nobody wants to acknowledge that on your push to make housing more affordable, you are pushing against two like very, very different demographics, people that own homes and people that don't own homes, and their interests are completely and totally aligned, or totally misaligned. They're contrary to each other. Because if you're trying to make homes more affordable, you're necessarily hurting homeowners. And if you're trying to make homeowners happier, you're necessarily hurting people that are trying to get more affordable homes. And nobody seems to be
I actually disagree with this.
Okay, go.
I think that the primary victims of prices going down over time is actually a fairly narrow group. It is people specifically who are going to be selling their last home, or people where there's big regional disparities, right? Is like, because if my house goes down by 100K and I move to another house that's also 100K cheaper, that about balances out.
I don't think people tend to view it that way. I feel like people are very obsessive about the price, the cost of their home or the value of their home increasing. And I think the value of people's homes decreasing, like mind them pretty hard. I don't disagree with you like on paper, but I don't know if like the average homeowner views the value of their house that way.
I kind of agree with you, but I think that's an education issue to some extent. I think we can make the case to people. It's like, as long as your home is still, say, more valuable than when you bought it, which is usually going to be true because generally we've seen increasing housing prices over time.
Sure. Yeah, wait, what are we disagreeing here? Or what is the argument here? Or no, well, it's still, because it's still harmful. You're just trying to argue that it's not as harmful or that they shouldn't care about the harm, basically.
No, what I'm saying is that there's only a specific demographic of people who are essentially leaving the housing market for good. So like if you see a broad sustained decrease in housing prices over time, if I'm 30, that's fine. My house will sell for less, but the houses I buy are also going to sell for less, or I'll buy for cheaper.
Yeah, but you're preferencing buyers in that case and hurting owners and sellers, right? So that person's interest would change immediately. Like theoretically, if you're only self-interested, the second you buy a house, you would want homeownership to become more restrictive. But your interests are going to be the contrary when you're still looking to buy a house, right?
Yes, but as a homeowner, I have the ability to see the long term, unlike rentoids. So, it's okay as long as I'm going to eventually win on the long end.
Yeah, but your winning is going to be less if you're trying to make homeownership more affordable, right?
No, because again, if it's affordable, like that's going to increase my ability to purchase new homes. Also, even when you're leaving the housing market for good, say retiring to an old age community where you're renting, you're still going to, a large part of that's going to be the land value. Wages are partly influenced by the cost of land as well in your community. So you're only a partial loser in those cases as well.
Okay, I gave a 2-minute extension. You had originally gotten voted off, but you guys were in the middle of it. So
I guess I don't. If you're trying to take like a holistic approach to the economy, and you're trying to say that lower housing prices on a long time horizon overall benefit the economy and everybody technically benefits, like in that like very 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 roundabout way, you're kind of correct. Well, no, I think in that roundabout way I would agree, but this is I think that this is going to be unpalatable to the average voter. Like if you could get people to understand time horizons on that scale, I think that would be pretty exceptional. But you also have to deal with all of the people in the interim who aren't benefiting from that same time horizon. For instance, if you've got a person who's in their late 50s, early 60s, they're not probably going to care as much about any of these time horizon arguments because their time to sell or cash out or whatever is coming up pretty soon, right?
Yep. And that's all investments, like stocks versus bonds. All right. So I'll go ahead and give two conclusions. All right. The first thing is, generally speaking, buying homes has been an effective way of building wealth over time. And I don't think the externalities are worth it. Like it's a good way of forced savings. And the second thing, my meme answer is Destiny. You realize you lost this debate even before you started because you politically canvassed in Omaha, a place where you own property, don't live. And you haven't politically canvassed in Miami, a place where you live and don't own, right? Ownership matters.
Okay, but the reason why, is because I've lived in Omaha for a longer period of time, and I've lived in Omaha in places that I don't tend to own. So fuck you and suck my dick. And in Miami, I haven't lived here as long, and I fuck your mom every day.
Great.
Get blown out. Get blown the fuck out.
Have a great day.
I love you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, we have a late entry. He is the landlord of landlords, the real estate titan of the community. So we're going to be bringing in Mr. Dan Saltman to argue with you over your horrible rent versus own takes.
Wow. This isn't even a fair debate now because of all the power that Dan possesses to ruin my career if we disagree.
Yes.
All right, Dan.
All right. I put together.
Come on, buddy.
Oh, right. This is like the substitute anything else that we have for today. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this thing to work. Is this going to pull up? Stupid fucking. Hold on.
It's all right. It's typical homeowner problems.
Where Dan can get.
It's like the homeowner's like, come and check out my cool thing that I have in my house, and it's like not working, and nothing is like actually functional, and yeah, it's all good.
We can get this to work. Okay, I just have to understand why it's not working right now, which is a very quick process.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on.
Clark, if you could make a poll for Dan's first thing, we're going to treat him just the same as everybody else. If his arguments suck, he's out of here. He's gone.
Damn.
No plot armor.
Why the fuck is this video shit not working? This is cringe. I don't understand.
Went through 8.
Maybe you need to reboot your
randos.
computer.
No, it works on Google Meet, but it's not working in Discord. I have literally no fucking idea why.
Wait. Is it working on Google Meet right now?
No.
Like it's trying to capture from two different.
You know, okay, I'm just going to close all browsers just in case it's somehow
Okay.
freaking out. Okay, let's see. Setting. Bro, I don't fucking know, man.
That's okay. You're getting that age.
Don't fucking laugh at me.
You're going to have to call your kids in. It's like, can you help me set this up? I don't know why this program's not doing what I expected. You know what you do? I'm going to grab a Red Bull. Okay, hold on.
Okay. Yeah, while you get that go, hold on. I can unplug this thing, plug it back in. I know I can solve this.
Did he figure it out?
Nope. He's booming. And he says he can't talk because he uses push to talk like a loser. He's not ready to have everything aired out at all times.
Jesus.
You really thinking about buying a condo?
No. I'm more serious than I had before, but the thing is, I don't know if Dan can hear right now. I'd really want to live in New York or LA. Those are like the places I would be. But as long as Dan's alive down here, oh, hey, there he is.
Oh my
he
God.
figured it out.
My fucking keyboard turned off. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Okay, like all my USB devices stopped working at once. It's not my fault. I have no idea what happened. Okay, genuinely.
It's
my mouse still works. Nothing else though.
Okay.
Don't okay me. Like I can't. How is it?
Oh, you're ready to stream on TikTok?
Oh no, am I in vertical format?
No, you're not. You're not. It's fine.
All right, no, hold on. I can go like this. Does it change it, or do I have to restart?
Oh no, that's good. Okay, it's horizontal now.
Yeah, no, that's perfect right there, Dan.
Are you lying when you say it's perfect? Okay, hold on. Okay, listen. There. Is it good or not?
Yep. No, it looks good.
You trolling me?
No, I'm not trolling you. It looks good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're gonna start. Okay. With the first thing, we're gonna start. I think with figure 1 on the whatever I sent you there. Can you pull that up? Is that possible?
Nope.
Figure 1. Okay.
Not you,
Dan
Steve.
sent me things to put on the screen with. Right, here we go. One up there. Why isn't it doing it? Perfect. Hold on.
This is so strange.
Now my shit's frozen, Dan. What
I'm watching the stream on my computer, and you're gonna let me be fucking like this the whole time. You're such a cunt. Oh my god. Hold on. That is some evil fucking shit. Does it flip now?
Oh, now it actually flipped. No,
Why didn't you
I don't like this as much.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Okay. Hold on. All right. Dan has this serious graph that he wants to show you. Okay, Dan, opening statement. Go ahead.
Okay, so 2 things I want to cover. Number 1, buying a condo is retarded in Miami Beach. Of like the most retarded things you can do, I would say it's at the tippy top. Buying a condo in Miami Beach is so autistic, it's difficult to explain, if that makes sense.
Wait, why do you not like condos in Miami Beach?
So we're gonna go through the figures of that first. So forget figure 1. Okay, all I wanted to show is that home prices go up faster than inflation. Okay, we're gonna come back to figure 2 and 3, which I think are very important things. I want to go straight into something that I think is when you look at the figures, it just doesn't make sense. So, Hobbit follower, can you pull up that firstapartments.com link for me?
Firstapartments.com link coming up. $2,600 a month, Miami-Dade County.
This is the cheapest 1-bedroom I could find in Miami Beach, as an example. And to live there will cost you $2,600 a month, and they'll probably also make you pay for renter's insurance, I would guess. But let's say
renter's insurance is like $40 a year, okay? But okay, Dan.
Forget the renter's insurance. Yeah. $2,600 a month to rent it, okay? I would say that's a pretty good deal. Now, Steve is over here saying, you know what? I want to buy a condo. Let's talk about buying this condo. The cheapest rent that I could find in Miami Beach. Now, this guy's renting it for this much. Now, how much would it cost to buy? So, second link, please, conductor.
Don't ever associate me with those riffraff.
Yeah, he's not the conductor. He's just
all right.
Subreddit.
I have a tight ship that I run here.
Okay, understood. All right, so this is in the same building I believe it is the same apartment and is $425,000 to buy. It is one of the cheapest one bedrooms that you can buy in Miami Beach. That is not like a kind of rundown piece of shit. So this is what you would expect to buy it. So now I want to go over the costs if you were to actually buy it instead of renting it, and why buying a condo is stupid. So to buy this at the current interest rate, not counting any principal, not counting anything, would be almost $28,000 a year, $27,624 a year.
Sure.
Property
Let's
taxes.
make a quick note here for people. Interest rates right now, I think, are exceptionally high. But go ahead.
They're not that high.
Are they the highest they've been in like a century?
No.
I feel like I just read this like 2 days ago.
Look up Reagan era interest rates. We're like in the dirt in comparison to like the 80s.
We're probably like 2 points away from like the low average historic of where it is.
Yeah, because rates were double digits before. Sorry, maybe not a century, but I thought they were like the highest they've been in like a few decades. But go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Right now, rates have come down a bit, so this is not that much. This would be much more if we were talking like the 8.5s that we used to be at. Anyways, so we have $28,000 a year in interest. You have $6,000 a year in property tax. You have almost $10,000 a year in HOA. Okay, then I'm just going to put it at $1,000 a year for like keeping shit inside the apartment up to date. That might be fixing a hole in the wall, new appliances, stuff breaks, lighting, whatever. I don't know if that's reasonable. Maybe you want to take that away. It doesn't really matter. Insurance on the condo will be about $2,000 a year, give or take. That's, I think we're in that range. Might be a little bit less, $1,000. I'll knock $2,000 off this total. So the rough side of this, okay, is about $46,500 a year. If you wanted to buy this property, that's about $38.72 a month. Okay. And that is with no principal payments made whatsoever at all. That is with nothing going wrong. And that's with no special assessments whatsoever. So to buy this property, just as it is right there, would cost you more than renting it. Almost double, to be honest, of what it is. And that's like owning the property. So it's like, it's among the worst things that you can possibly do.
Wait, why do they sell for that much then?
Because Miami Beach is a desirable place and people come here and they dump money into the market because they think that the property value is going to go up. So they don't care if they can just subsidize the cost of the properties a little bit over time. They'll do it, and they're not making money. Even if you own this place.
So the real estate market in Miami is an irrational market where people just dump money into it and they don't actually make any money.
I'm not talking globally. We're talking specifically.
I didn't say globally. I said Miami. The Miami Beach real estate market. All the investors here are just not savvy. They don't know what they're doing with their money. They're stupid.
It's not that they're not savvy. It's that it's a desirable market, so the prices are high. Let's say if you don't want to count interest, okay? There's a $425,000 place. We're taking interest out of the equation. All we're going to do is property taxes and HOA. We know you got to pay both of those, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although
you got to pay those.
I was looking to get rid of property tax, but no, yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Property taxes, HOA, and the condo building's going to probably require you to have insurance. Those three things were almost at $20,000 a year, which is like a little bit less than $2,000 a month. Okay. Versus $2,600 a month for renting.
Why is the renting so cheap if the ownership rates, if the sale prices are so high?
Well, the sale price isn't even that high comparatively. But that said,
wait, what do you mean it's not that high? Wait, I'm not understanding.
Well, okay, fine. I'll jump into this.
Wait, when I say sale price, I mean like the overall. I'm sorry. Let me be more specific. The overall cost of ownership. If that's so high, why wouldn't that be reflected in the rent prices?
Because there's more of a desire to own property here than there is for people to rent the property. So there's a lot of people here that will buy them a property for themselves or buy property for future upside versus wanting to actually be in the landlord business. So as a result of that, essentially you get these disparities here in Miami Beach specifically that don't exist other places. This is not normal. I'm only talking about Miami Beach in general here. So there's two other things, and maybe this will help you explain why people are willing to do it. So go to figure 5.
What do you want me to do?
So the first one on here, this is the value of, in Miami Beach, what a single family home has gone through since 2017, but whatever. So you have over 100% increase in single family home values. And then the second one, if you pull that one up, this is on condo value. It's good, but it's still not it's not as good as single family. This one went about, what did I say here? 78% up from the lowest of the low. So for both of these, the lowest of the low, the highest of the high. 78 versus 104 on growth. Now, there's other parts, okay, that make it.
Can you show me the same thing for Santa Monica?
Well, I would, but my keyboard has no power for some reason right now.
How the fuck is your keyboard not working?
I genuinely have no idea. My entire USB hub, I think. Wait, actually, that's.
He sent me only screenshot session, so I don't have the option to change this around. So we're booming pretty hard on this one. But you know what we're not doing? Kicking Dan off of the stream because he is with a 71% ratio. He is being extended. So 5 more minutes, Dan.
Okay, listen, hold on. Important stuff. Okay, look, important stuff.
Pause. Yep, we're holding.
All right. So there is another very key benefit to having a house over a condo, even in Miami Beach, besides the fact that it doesn't make sense to rent versus buy in Miami Beach.
Okay.
So remember how I mentioned that HOA figure? That's not unreasonable. You're like, holy shit, that's actually a lot of money. That's like 10 grand a year. It's kind of wild for, that shit. That's normal. It's going to be around that part. The best you're going to get is like $600 a month for a 1-bedroom. You know why it sucks? Is that if you own a house, okay, if I own this house and I go and I put a brand new roof on the house, that's kind of like the HOA. That's a substitute of the HOA. You pay an HOA to a condo building because they do shit like they put a new roof on, they maintain the elevators, they make it nice in there. So you can't deduct HOA from your taxes at the end of the year. But guess what I get to do when I sell this house in the future if I do? Anything that I put into this house that's a replacement, new kitchen, new roof inside
your
of here.
1031 exchange that you love so much.
No, not 1031. No, this adds to your taxable basis. So let's say I bought this house for $100,000, and let's say there was no benefit of whatever for home ownership where you get a credit. I bought it for $100, I'm gonna sell it for $200. Shit, I owe taxes on $100K long-term capital gains. No, because I also put $30K into the property. Okay, I put $20K into the roof. I put $10K into remodeling the kitchen. Now, my basis isn't $100K anymore. It's $130K. So now I'm only paying taxes on $70K of gains versus the other thing. So with a condo building, even though you may have paid $500,000 in HOA over 10 years of owning the property, you can deduct none of that, even though the HOA place has probably put a new roof on, even though they've gone and they've redone the elevators. It's not a benefit that you have having a condo. So you lose that benefit as well. So the other big part is something someone touched on this, and it is kind of interesting. I mean, we had the Surfside condo collapse that had happened up here. We don't know the true lifespan of what all of these condo buildings that were built 20 to 30 years ago are, because, they were doing this shit without the internet, books at the library, wild times, okay? Architects in room with paper. Reasonable thinking is that...
I don't know if you know this, we still do that.
Yeah, the reasonable thinking is that property lifespan for a concrete skyscraper is at most 150 years, unless it was built exceptionally well, especially for stuff that was built 20 to 30 years ago. That's the max. In realistic speaking, we're talking about 100 years or less, okay? And after 100 years, what happens is they say, we're going to demolish this property. The upkeep bill is too much. Now I get to the next figure 4, if you pull up there.
Bring up figure 4.
So in Miami Beach, as a result, well, not a result, this has been the case before, but now it's more stringent. With the Surfside collapse, which killed all those people, God bless them, we have this thing called a 30-year reinspection, and then every 10 years after that, you have a new inspection. What does this mean? It means every 10 years that you're in a condo building, someone from the city of Miami is going to come and they're going to inspect every part of the foundational structure, electrical, everything having to do with your condo building. And with a building that might be very high, this could be unbelievably expensive affair as a result of this. I mean, you could essentially, the article that I have to pull up here shows that people that were living in a tower that had apartments that were worth like $200,000 or $300,000 were hit with a $225,000 each special assessment if they wanted to keep living there, because that would be the cost to maintain and fix that building at that point. So it is not a infinite length that you have for your property. You move in and you're at the mercy of the building being well maintained, and you're being at the mercy of the fact of it not collapsing, everything else. Okay, so that doesn't happen with a house for the most part. For the most part, if you keep updating a house and maintaining it, I would say that a house lifespan, like Theseus's ship, will be indefinite. If
wait, can I ask a question? I'm curious. I actually don't know the answer to this. In Sweden, it seemed like it. I don't know if this is true or not, but just from listening to Melina and her dad talk about this, it seemed like there weren't very many building owners, but it was really common that a lot of the apartment complexes were cooperatively owned. Is that a thing that happens in the US? Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah. Yes. And but it's not common. You see some of that in New York City. In New York City, there are some buildings that are co-op owned, and it's like kind of a HOA on steroids. And basically, what it means is that there is not like it's kind of this. There's this figure in San Francisco that's very popular. It's called tenancy in common, or TIC, and very few banks will mortgage on them. But what essentially it means is, imagine like a 4-unit building or a 20-unit building. It doesn't matter. But guess what? It's not titled as a 20-unit building or a 4-unit building. It's just titled as a building with one single owner. And essentially what happens is that these TICs or these co-ops act as mini corporations, if you will, where your share and your vote is dictated off of the square footage or the assessed value of each unit inside. And then the assessors will kind of come in there and they'll determine, like, how much is each unit worth, and they will do that. So the cities will still do it, but essentially for the tax roll purpose, it is a single building, and you'll get a one assessment, and then it's up to the people inside of the unit to vote on how it can be. And then sometimes you get disparities, like one guy who's getting fucked versus the other people, so he has to go and sue and everything. But it's a whole thing. It's a corporation, essentially. But it's not common. If I had to guess, it would probably be less than 2% of not commercial real estate, residential apartment buildings fall under that co-op class. Okay, so here's the important thing that I want to throw out here. So we said the cost for you to buy this place would be about $47,000 a year, $3,800 a month, $3,900 a month. I want to give a counterclaim. So my house is worth somewhere between $4.5 and $5 million, and I added all of my costs that I need to pay every month to keep this house moving forward. This stuff is non-negotiable. I have $1,700 a month for property tax. I have $350 a month for flood insurance, $185 for my home insurance, about $4,000 a year, $500 electricity. I'm including electricity because I'm going to be paying more than if I had a condo. It would be less, obviously, because there's more heat savings, everything. $500 for my pool. For $500 for extra water and extra trash service. $150 for pool. $200 for gardener. That whole total brings me to about $3,600 a month, $43,000 a year. So even that, owning a $4.5 million house is less expensive than buying a $425,000 condo on a monthly basis. So owning a single family home is like exponentially better than a condo, and you get the additional benefits as well. So that's kind of the whole don't buy a condo, whatever you do. If you're going to buy something, buy a single family home. Never buy a condo. Just keep renting. It's
in the Miami market, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah,
I still feel like there has to be something that we're not accounting for, or that you're not accounting for.
No, it's just Miami Beach. Yeah, it's Miami Beach, and it's extremely desirable. A lot of people want to buy stuff here because they think that it's going to go up in value. But
that's got to be true of every. There's no way that that's unique to Miami Beach.
That is unique to Miami.
Really, nobody in Beverly Hills or Santa Monica or Manhattan, like nobody has this thought that
those places are probably like that as well. Yeah, super desirable places are going to be out of disparity of the cost of ownership versus the rental cost. But if you go to middle fucking nowhere, or not even middle of nowhere, if you just go to like Springfield, whatever, any state, it's not going to be that. You'll be able to be making money and be better off buying than you are renting. It's something where it's more desirability takes away from the rental benefit as that, if that will. Like there's a benefit to rent over buying in desirable areas because there's more people that want to buy and they don't necessarily want to deal with the bullshit of being a landlord, which also this factors in a little bit into supply and demand and, how much of that, like, is this a place like Texas that's letting you build like fucking crazy? Or is it like San Francisco where it definitely makes sense to buy, even though that's a desirable place because they won't let anyone build, right? Like that's a completely different market than Miami. Miami lets you build condos like crazy here, for instance. So that's like the big reason it doesn't make sense to buy a condo probably in Miami or Miami Beach is what I would say. If you get farther out into Miami, I think you can switch lanes a little bit on that front.
Okay.
Two last things. So the figure 6, sir.
Yeah, figure 6. Did we even go through figures 1 through 4, or did we just skip those?
I'm gonna do figures. So figures.
Awesome graphs we shared earlier.
Yeah, 2 and 3 are pretty. 2 and 3 are pretty good, but those are the last ones we're going to do because that's like my magnum opus on this. Figure 6, okay? What this is I think it's an important factor because a lot of people, they only look at real estate investing or owning a home on a very basic level, which is what would this be if I put this into the stock market instead? And Obviously, the stock market is going to be better in those cases if you just buy a house and live in it. And I don't think anyone would disagree with it. However, things do change if you buy property and rent it out. And then with that increased equity and increased rental income that you have monthly, you can either buy another property. I don't even know if that's categorized in here or not, or you can put that into the market directly as that green line indicates there. So it keeps up with the S&P 500 still doing real estate. However, the other benefit that you have there is all of the tax benefits probably aren't being shown on this graph as far as being able to write off. Like that income that you see in that green line right there, that's going to be essentially tax-free for the most part, as opposed to the blue line. Almost definitely, you're going to be paying long-term capital gains, and depending on your state, you might have more. And then for the finality of my point of why people should buy single-family homes and treat it like an investment while they can you please go
just as a quick thing on this last thing, investment property and buying a single-family home, these are two totally different things. I don't consider somebody to be involved in real estate if they just buy a home to live in, right?
Fair enough. Yeah. And that will take us to the most important parts of my conclusion of why single-family home ownership is important for most of Americans. Figure 2 and figure 3, please, sir.
Uh-oh.
All right, figure 2.
Okay.
And
so, figure 2, I'd like to give you a statistic here. Okay. Around between 76.6 million and 83 million people inside of America have an IQ of 89 or below, which puts them on the low average, also one step away from mild mental disability.
Okay.
Now, after that, we also have between 23 and 26 million people actually have mild mental disabilities or less. And I would say that with a people like this, they are not capable, okay? If you have that type of thing, the only level of easy equity building that you can do is to own a home. That anything else will probably be beyond their reach, that they'll be convinced and they'll end up putting all their money into fucking Bed Bath & Beyond or doing some stupid shit, buying a car with it, and that a home is one thing that they can be forced into doing where they can't get out of it. They buy a house, they have a mortgage payment, and that's the end of the game. That's all they can do. And it's like a forced retirement plan for them that otherwise would not exist. And at the end of this, they can be rewarded if they don't fuck it up.
I think I could agree with that, but I feel like at the very end of the day, then that just makes the ultimate rentoid versus the mortgageoid argument, where a mortgageoid is a Neanderthal, knuckle-dragging dipshit who's too stupid to deal with his money otherwise, and the rentoid is the superior drifter from place to place with the ultimate freedom and capability to do anything he wants in his life.
Well, I mean, there's one thing you can't do as a rentoid, though. Do you know what that is?
What?
Stay in your place if you want to.
Really? Because I've been here for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, what about if they decide that they're going to start condoing out the units?
Oh, really? So you're saying people that own their places can stay there for as long as they want?
Yes.
Really? Tell me, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me something, Dan.
I'm ready to be told.
Tell me something, Dan. Where were you? Where were you living in early 2005?
2005, Massachusetts, I think, or San Francisco. No, Massachusetts. Why?
Wait, am I mixing it with somebody else? Who did I know that had to move out of Louisiana because of Hurricane Katrina? Didn't you have stories about
that was me.
Yeah.
That was 2003, though.
Was that Hurricane Katrina?
Or no, wasn't that early? When was Hurricane Katrina? It was like 2003, wasn't it?
The AI said 2005.
Was it really?
Oh, I see why you're a homeowner now. 70 to 79 IQ? Was that the...
Wait, no, when... listen, I'm old, so I get dates mixed up. Was it 2005? I guess that makes sense. Does it?
Yeah.
Stop fucking with me.
So
hey,
even those people...
I don't have a keyboard.
Okay.
I can't check. When was Hurricane Katrina?
It was 2005.
I need to know. It was 2005. Okay. You know what I was doing there? I was a rentoid.
And you know what? How much would that have sucked if you would have owned your home and you had to leave?
It would have... well, I mean, I would have got a good amount of money from the government.
Maybe.
As a result. And...
Kanye West says that. I mean,
if your litmus test of why this is better is that a tornado can rip up your house, I don't think that that's a specifically good argument.
Well, it wasn't a tornado; it was a hurricane. And we live in, where do we live in again? Miami.
Yes, I'm using a extreme example of that. Yes, I understand that.
Oh, so tornadoes are worse than hurricanes?
I think so for damage if they hit you directly. Yes, it's higher wind count, higher wind speed. And But yeah, that's the one thing you can't do. Like, if you really, really like where you're at the mercy of the building not to jack the rent up past something that you can pay, or decide that they want to just take it off the market and use it for themselves. The owner doesn't want to sell it. It just wants to fucking live in that unit. That's one thing that you can't do with an apartment. You also are limited with what you can do inside the place. You have to abide by the rules. What about if everyone in the building votes that moving forward past 11 p.m., there's no shouting? And it's like, well, what the fuck? I do my stream past 11 and I shout. Well, fuck you. The HOA says you can't do it. And, eventually they can evict you if you don't do it, right? You don't have this level of autonomy in a apartment, whereas you would have it in a house. So
sure, but I feel like that cuts both ways, though, right? Like if you own a house, I know this cuts both ways because you know this, right? Why do HOAs exist? Why do HOAs exist?
Well, HOAs exist because when neighborhoods are created, they think that they want to make sure, essentially, they keep the riffraff out and that all of the houses stay of a certain level of quality. But that's only.
But like if you live in a neighborhood,
20% of the housing stock.
Sure, no, I agree, I understand. But like if you live in a neighborhood and then a bunch of people start moving into your neighborhood and these people suck shit and they're doing crazy wild stuff, you're trapped. You're a prisoner. And now the value of your property is going to go down. Now you're like trapped with all these.
I mean, look, to be fair, right, for both sides of the arguments, all we can do is look at an aggregate average of what's the most likely situation to happen. And the most likely situation is that home values typically go up. Right, that's the most likely thing.
Yeah, but this is not what we're ever looking at. We're not looking at if home values go up. It's always our home values going up in comparison to other things, right?
Well, yeah, but I put up that, right? Home values kind of keep pace or exceed inflation rate, and home values.
I think they typically will.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of Americans, it's probably the only thing that they can comprehend and fathom that allows them to have some sort of wealth retention for a lot of people. If you're really wealthy, okay, if you're like a multi-millionaire, sure, apartments can be based. If you're the type of guy that's like, you're a single guy, you want to move, you want to go to a different place, I absolutely agree. Like, it would be hard to buy a house. Like, in general, you don't want to buy a new house, I think, unless you want to live there, as a single family thing for like over 7 years or something like that. Like, otherwise, I think end up, in most cases, that isn't a demand-based market like where we're at in Miami Beach.
What?
I can hear that.
Oh, I didn't even. Go ahead.
In general, renting would be better, I think, if in most places, if you weren't going to stay there for 7 years.
Yeah, no, I think I came out and said it earlier. I think that it's, I feel like owning a home is like a stage of life thing. Like, I think there are appropriate stages in your life to be in a house, and there's probably appropriate stages in your life to be in an apartment. But I think the thing that I usually push back on is people just push the home ownership like it's like literally the best, most superior thing you can do at every point in life. When I think there are times where
I wouldn't agree that it's obviously it's not, but I would say it's probably the best as an average option that we can, like, if we have to force it on all of the American public, it's probably the best option that we have because everyone else is they're just.
Yeah, but at certain stages in life, it's like the best option. Because I think the issue we're running into now is I think we've seen a lot of the negative effects of all of the external damages that pushing home ownership has cost us in terms of now Florida is trying to get rid of property tax. California has no property tax, basically. Zoning and districting cities is impossible because of the obsession with single family homes. Certain cities are becoming unlivable, and now states are freaking out because people are moving and fleeing, places like California or New York to go to other cities who are now also experiencing massive increases in home prices and everything. So I think we're past where it's not even like, well, hypothetically in the future, this could incentivize bad stuff. Like, we're already seeing and have been seeing negative external effects of people treating homes as like this primary investment vehicle that they need to be in as soon as possible, rather than like there's an appropriate stage of life to live in a house and maybe even buy a house, and there's appropriate stages in life to be in apartments, I think.
No, I agree with that, but you also have to just say, like, what should be the case versus what is the case. And what is the case is that this shit is fucking cooked and people are they're stupid, and they're going to, there's a lot more sprawl towards the city. Like, I think in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, there was a big push to not be living in the cities, and that was seen as dangerous and bad. And now it's returning to be the other way, where younger adults are having more of a desire to live in the city as opposed to the other thing. So it is getting congested and bad. There's really nothing we can fucking do about it because single family home owners are going to be the largest voting bloc, and they're always going to vote in their own interest when it comes against them. So
Japan seems like they figured it out. I don't know what they do differently, but.
Well, I mean, that they have like a fucking king and shit. So, I mean, yeah, can it be possible to be fixed with some sort of unitary?
I'm pretty sure Japan is a functional government. I think if that emperor thing is even still there, which I don't know if he is, but if he is, it's probably like symbolic, like in the UK.
Well, Japan I would say Japan's also a shitty example, and that's just like aren't they like the worst country when it comes to matching birth rates? Like they have like so many houses that are vacant. It's not really like I understand we have vacant houses in America, but there's a housing crisis in America. They have a different type of housing crisis.
They have a crisis for sure, but I mean, like they got all those hentais and the crazy stuff to jerk off to, so they've got their own problems. But you know,
yeah, that's true. So
I think one thing I like, some guy brought it up earlier, is I think housing should probably be controlled at the state level instead of at the like local city level. I think that's probably not.
Meaning what?
Like the state can just say, this is how we're going to set housing policy, rather than every individual city getting to dictate it, because cities are probably
like what housing policy?
Like stuff like zoning.
Rent control in San Francisco?
Sure, rent control, how you zone things, like how you order more housing to be built or whatever. I think
it might be used, like I could see that being used as a stick or a carrot right now with the current administration, right? If you have a governor that's Republican in a very Democratic city, and all of a sudden he's going to try and, you have the state being able to go and dictate how things are done here. And it's
but
very
again, that always cuts both ways, because you could have the opposite where there's a governor and a mayor that fight, and the mayor is feeling differently than.
Well, this is like the whole House of Representatives thing. Why do we have it? Well, the idea is that, Miami is very different than all Republican Florida. So we don't want, we want a mayor that represents the desires of Miami residents versus, the governor in Florida who doesn't really give a shit about Miami any more than he does Jacksonville or Tallahassee or something.
Sure, but like the big benefit of having a federal government is I don't want Florida to be able to cut special deals with South America that like New York can't take advantage of, or coastal cities to be able to cut special shipping deals and fuck over Midwestern cities. So the federal government kind of has to make sure that we're all invested in that. And I feel like when it comes to zoning and stuff, having the state government being able to dictate it is probably better than every city trying to kind of like optimize for themselves. It just seems like the city stuff is just not working right now, or housing is not working really in the entire Western world. So it seems like something needs to change there in terms of how it's doled out. But
I mean, I guess, like, if you use that argument, I guess you would say that you think that there probably shouldn't be a House of Representatives then, right? Because it's very similar to what you're saying, that there shouldn't be local policymakers that are deciding policy for a specific area. Or do you disagree with that?
No, House of Representatives and Senate both oversee the same area. It's just different types of representation. But it's the jurisdiction.
Right. So we have a representative in the House that like covers like Miami, and they give a first and foremost about Miami and Miami Beach and Fort
but
Lauderdale,
only for matters of like kind of like federal importance. Like the House of Representatives,
they're supposed to only advocate on our behalf of the residents. But
they're advocating to the federal government, not to the state government, or not to the local city, municipality, or whatever.
I think they do some stuff. I mean, I know that there's some weird shit with like a state. Even on a statewide, you have state senators, and don't they do kind of similar shit?
Yeah, but that is for the state though. When you say state senators, you mean for like the state government, like they advocate. But I'm just saying that like our representative that represents whatever district, is this 6 or 1? I don't fucking remember. Whatever district this is, I should know this, that goes to the federal government. They're advocating arguably for our district or for our state or for our district more specifically, but they're advocating to the federal government, not to the Florida government or to the city municipality. So you advocate for different things to different bodies, I guess. Yeah.
I guess. I would imagine that the Florida state rep and the Florida federal rep, both representing Miami, are going to have similar desires and demands. There might be
no, they'll be totally different. So
I mean, they'd be going after different funds, but I don't think that they're going to be giving a fuck about Nebraska either way. They're going to be like, yeah, fuck Nebraska.
Sure. But like, let's say, for instance, there's a question of like property taxes in Florida. Your state representatives, and maybe if you have city council people, those people are going to fight for that. But your House or your Senate seat for the federal government, they have nothing to do with that. Now they could like go and campaign with them because they're like well-known people, but they're not part of that voting body that has any determinative thing on Florida policy. They're just fighting on U.S. policy for the United States. Much the same that, like, let's say there was going to be like a trade deal cut or like these tariffs or whatever, your state representative can't do fuck all in terms of voting for that, but your federal representative, whether it's the representative or the senator, those guys are going to advocate for that because it's a different body that can make like different kind of rules encompassing it, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much things would change. Like, I don't know, like, when you come to zoning, like, are we really at what can you change in Miami Beach? Like, what can you actually do with zoning wise here? Like, is there
still... No offense to you guys.
You think there's like a desire to build skyscrapers here that is not getting allowed from
there's
city
a ton
council?
of single family. You live here in single family fucking housing, Dan. There's still a lot of single family housings in Miami Beach.
Yeah, and I don't want to fucking go anywhere, and I ain't selling unless it's a retarded amount.
Okay, well,
That's
at the
only a
very
small
least,
issue.
can we agree to get rid of the? How about can we come together and get rid of the people in the middle? So you've been to my apartment, you obviously, right? You know that like right across the street, there's a ton of these like 2-story duplex, quadruplex things, right? Why aren't those high rises?
Well, so that might be a zoning issue, but that's also if the people in Miami Beach do not want a skyscraper in that area, who is the representative that is going to go against that and then lose their
Wait, what are we talking about right now? Are we talking about
like in Miami Beach? Okay, the place across the street from you, there's just some low rise, like 2-family buildings, right? So why is not some big sky rise developer coming in there, buying those properties, we'll pay double what they're worth, right? We're going to throw down 20 million.
Oh, it's probably not zoned for it.
Yeah. So why is that not happening? Then the answer to that is that because it's not zoned to go beyond like 40 feet in height. That's why you can't do it. So,
sure. But there might be like, this is the argument that Ezra Klein makes. Now I haven't read the book, so maybe it's not exactly like what it sounds like. My guess is even though we're in Miami, there might be like a billion autismo things about why that's not happening. Like it might be, so in my mind, like my intuitive answer is like, oh, well, if you demolish it, people probably just here wouldn't be in favor of that or wouldn't vote for it or something. But the actual answer might be if you want that many high density buildings next to each other, you actually have to widen the interstate to Miami City because of like the regulations for how many people can live in an area versus like the highways made available to them or something. There might be like some really autistic shit like that or something, you know?
No, it can be that. Like, for instance, I know there's a law in place that if you're within, I think it's a quarter mile of a beach, do you know that the windows that you install in your property, if it has a direct view of the ocean, cannot have a reflective index of more than X because it might affect sea turtles? It's a real law.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that, but as a relational thing, that's very briefly, hardly related. In Jerusalem, I think it was around the 48 war, people couldn't do their dishes in the morning. They had to wait till the evening when the sun was setting. It sounds like I'm setting you up for big trouble, but I'm not. Because what would happen is when the sun was setting, I think it would reflect on the glass. So if people were sniping over hills, they couldn't shoot in and kill you while you were doing your dishes. They had to wait for the sunset to do that so that the sun was hitting the windows right. That reminded me of that.
But once the sun went down, wouldn't it be easier because then you have the light inside lighting you up and you would be an easier shot versus the day, the reflections of the windows would actually bounce it off. That doesn't make sense at all. No. Nighttime shots, that's the
no. I'm saying where the sun is in the sky. Because like in the day, if the sun is behind your house, they can still see in. But I'm saying like when the sun gets to the other side, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying like
you have lights on. They still had lights in the 50s.
No,
right?
I'm not saying like sunset like it's dark. I'm just saying where the sun is at the sky. Like at 5 p.m., you don't need to turn the lights on in your house.
Yeah, sure. I think you're right. There's regulations. Like for instance, there's mandated. So I live off of 41st Street here in Miami Beach, and that is a designated evacuation route. What that means is that the city, they want to come in there and they want to go and completely like remodel that street to make it kind of similar to Lincoln Road. They want to do that. They want to get rid of the parking spots on the side and turn it into like restaurant seating and all that type of shit. The problem is that is a designated evacuation route in the case of a hurricane.
Sure.
So they're limited. It has to remain a certain amount of lanes, this whole other shit. But I mean, the biggest stumbling block, number one, is zoning. So why are those buildings across the street from you not getting bought up tomorrow and turned into a skyrise? It's because they're only zoned for 40 feet. Sure. Right. And that's not going to change.
The question is like, why is it zoned that way? And that's always like the really complicated thing, right? Yeah.
Well, I think it's a mix probably of some good reasons that we would agree on and some like voter bullshit of just wanting to keep the prices
I mean, like they're probably all like decently good reasons. I imagine it's probably similar to like any sufficiently large software project where if you want to change a thing, there's like a million different dependencies and it's just fucking annoying. And like it's why stuff was broken up into microservices. So you had more modularity. Like there's probably not much modularity when it comes to city design. Like if you want to change one thing, you've got to go to like 15 different fucking bodies and get OKs and approvals and everything is dependent on everything else at all points in time. That's what it feels like when it comes to anything related to construction in the United States, which is annoying as fuck.
I guess there's a question, like looking at something like San Francisco and even to an extent Miami Beach, like and maybe not so much Miami, but definitely San Francisco. When you think of San Francisco and what the charm of that place is that it's a city of essentially 2- and 3-story like row houses, like the very famous painted ladies' houses on a street. You have the curvy Lombard Street. The question is, how much of this city will lose its character as it becomes this dystopian cyberpunk. More and more skyscrapers keep going out and sprawling more and more and more until all of that culture is gone of what it is. And how much voting power do the residents have to
Yeah,
stop
but like
that?
this is the anti-gentrification argument. I think gentrification is based like cultures and things change over time. The idea that you're going to hold on to the same type of charm forever, I don't think any place in the entire world does that. Like if you want shit like that, go to Italy and go look at the Colosseum or some bullshit. Or
But even there, you would be in favor of it. I mean, the problem is
I'm just saying that like in San Francisco, like this is a place that needs to grow and it needs to evolve. And rather than the choice is either like the old, quaint, like cute, culturally rich place versus the soulless skyscraper place, why can't we move in a direction where we are both functional, right? But also you have like cute cultural things. Like why can't we do both?
I don't know. I don't think they're inclusive. I think that if demand was to keep up with San Francisco, I think the sprawl would eventually start taking away from what it is, right? Like I think that's maybe a possibility of the case. Like, would people want to be in San Francisco if it was like Manhattan? I don't know. It's a very different experience of those things. Like in Manhattan, there is no single family homes. There is no like walking to your corner bodega type of thing that's on the, one level thing. It's like, skyscraper, skyscraper, skyscraper. Every building is at least like 100 feet tall. It's a different experience. And people go to San Francisco because they want that experience or because there's jobs there. But I think that as you take that away and it becomes a different thing, there'll be perhaps less demand, and then you might have an exodus of the people that liked it for what it was. So it can also go the other direction as well. And you have like, I think like Houston or Dallas are one of those, or some of these cities where it's like, they used to have a lot of desire. There was good jobs there, and they built a lot, and now, there's more of like people would rather live in like Fort Stockton, than they would live in Dallas, even though it's like way smaller because it's much more like genuine, cute, that type of shit. So yeah, but anyways, if we take anything away from this conversation, is just don't buy a condo. Whatever you do, just keep renting.
In Miami
if you're going to buy anything, buy a house. Well, I mean, I gave you the math. It doesn't make sense. You will pay more money, assuming you bought this thing.
Okay, let me know when one of your neighbors is selling. Do they actually? Do they do a Jew check in your neighborhood? Like, would they sell to a secular atheist?
I'm pretty sure that would be illegal for them not to. So yeah, I think you're okay. But as I said, it's not. You only buy if you're worried about being priced out in the future. That's like the reason to buy. You're worried that rents are going to triple or quadruple, and you want to live here the rest of your life. Buy. Or if you're part of that, 40% of Americans that's pretty fucking stupid, you buy because it's probably the only benefit you're going to have wealth retention because you're too stupid to not lose your money in the market. Like that's it. Like for us, it's easy to say just put it all in S&P 500 and don't touch it. But poor people have poor people moments where it's like your car broke down. Now I got to pull it out. And yeah, it sucks that I have a penalty, but I got to do it. And that's it. And, not being able to do it because it's a house kind of gives them a little bit of benefits that they won't otherwise have, I think.
Okay.
Anyways,
fantastic, Dan.
Yeah, upload this segment to anything else. This counts. This is this week's episode because Steve's not going to be here. Sorry.
Damn.
So
Dan literally thinks all of Manhattan is Lower Manhattan and East Midtown. LOL. I'm sorry. Are there parts of Manhattan that have a ton of single family homes that I've just never heard of?
No, I don't know where. I would fucking
dumbass.
I would look, but I can't. My keyboard's not working right now. I don't know how north you have to go in Manhattan before you see a single family house.
Like, I'm sure there are a few, but I seriously doubt there are that many, or at least I've never been to a part of Manhattan that has a ton of.
I mean, I know there are single family houses in Miami, or it's not in Miami, in Manhattan, but I think they're like national monument type things, like the fucking Getty lived here type of shit, and now it's like a library or some shit like that. So, yeah. All right, well, that's it. That's all that I have. Say hi. Hey.
Wait, was that your visitor cat, or is that a different? Or
yeah, this is a visitor cat. He just like comes in here.
Does he live with you now, or are you still? Is he in and out?
No, he comes and he goes. That's it.
Wow.
Hey. All right, never mind. All right, that's it. Have a good trip to wherever it is you're going.
DC should be fun.
Yep. Later.